From the halls of assembly, you'll hear us scream and shout. Our love of Indiana is manic and devout. Everything I you we discuss in unique manner. We won't be satisfied until we hang another banner. Us two goofy guys go by names of Ward and Eric, and as you probably know by now, we're Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier Hysterics.
Hello, my fellow Rose Bowl champion fan of Indiana football, Ward.
Hello, Eric. Our voices don't sound quite as bad as I thought they would today.
I'm working at about 70%, I would say. I'm about 70. I am on my, I think, 6th or 7th victory cigar since the game ended yesterday.
I bet that's a low estimate.
Just like the 70% number that people have been throwing around about the contingent of Indiana fans versus Alabama fans.
Also a low estimate.
Look, we've got a lot to talk about. We've got two incredible guests. We've got to recap the weekend, or it's not a weekend, I guess. It feels like a weekend, but it's not. We'll recap the festivities. But before we do that, a very special plug for the guy who's been with us since the beginning. I mean, he started off as a listener of the podcast and then very quickly became a sponsor for us and really a partner for us and a friend. And we got to spend this Rose Bowl with him and his family and experience it together. As always, we are
powered by
CommunityCars.com, sponsor of the pod, Hoosier Hysterics. CommunityCars.com, Hoosier Legends talk with Ward and Eric.
and fade out. The first time that we've ever plugged Community Cars after winning the Rose Bowl.
First time ever. To spend that time with Evan and his family, because we talk about the family community atmosphere and ethos around Community Cars, but to see it in all its glory with him and Angela and Ben and Ethan, for them to share that with us, for you and Stellan, Ainsley, and myself to be able to be a part of their family and watch that game and share history and high fives and fist bumps and hugs. It is incarnate what that company is all about.
Incarnate?
I meant to do that.
Besides talking about word incarnate, that might be the first use of that word ever in the history of our podcast.
Well, there's a lot of words we've missed on.
Well, there's just a lot of words we don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We don't know.
I'm not entirely sure that incarnate was used properly, but I'm going to trust you.
I think so. Like it embodies, personifies the ethos. Yeah, sure. Let's say it's at least what's a word that's like another word?
A synonym?
Yep, exactly.
Good. All right. I don't think synonyms been used on our show either. So there you go. Look, your money is hard-earned and important to you, and you want to make sure that you're spending it at the right place and that you're getting value for your money. You are going to have to buy a car or lease a car or sell your car at some point in the future here. And where you give those very precious dollars is important. And if you want to know that they're going to a place that has the same values that you do, that care about the same things that you hold dear to your heart, like Indiana University and all of its athletic teams, there is no better place to spend those dollars than Community Cars. They're going to take care of you. You're going to become part of their community and their family, and they'll become part of yours. They'll even show up for dinner if you want. Buy a car. The Martin family comes over for dinner. That's the new promotion.
Only in the Continental 48. Well,
correct.
Actually, you know what? They'd probably make an exception if you invited them to Honolulu.
Yeah, they're not going to Anchorage. But look, they've got a ton of different car lines for new cars, a bunch of different car brands.
I thought you were going to say a ton of different colors.
Well, they do. We know that. We know that for a fact. But also, if you're looking for a used car, they'll work with you to find the best used car, no matter what the brand. And they're going to work with you, and then they're going to take care of you to make sure the car runs properly, to make sure you feel good about the deal, you understand everything, and they're going to give you the best deal they can possibly give you. So, Community Cars, CommunityCars.com. Ward, I don't even know where to start.
I got something to start.
Okay,
just
please.
to set the table, because I keep trying to refine how you put this out. We all got to witness yesterday, starring their Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and led by their back-to-back National Coach of the Year. How about them number one ranked, number one seeded, undefeated Big Ten and Rose Bowl champion Indiana Hoosiers?
Did you write that?
Yes.
That's very good.
Well, it's you just have to keep adding these accolades.
Do it again.
Okay. I didn't really,
but slower.
Okay. I didn't really know how to get into it. We'll do it ASMR style. Starring their Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and led by their back-to-back National Coach of the Year. How about them number one ranked, number one seeded, undefeated Big Ten and Rose Bowl champion, Indiana Hoosiers?
It's so good. It's just so good. All right, look, last week we released a podcast of us going to the team hotel when they arrived in Los Angeles and the takeover of Southern California by Indiana University began. But I think just to kind of talk about this last few days, I just, the buzz that started building that day, when we were there, and you could feel it. Like, even in the few hours we were there, you just felt the buzz building and building and building. And you started seeing it online, more and more people coming to town and posting their pictures about where they were. I was looking at Galen Clavio's Twitter account and watching his, stampede when they did a road trip across the country from Bloomington to LA. You just felt this great ascent of Hoosier energy. And I felt it for the first time in like a very tangible way on Tuesday, December 30th. So Tuesday, December 30th, I got the opportunity to go down to the Rose Bowl. And I have a friend who had some field passes and got to walk into the Rose Bowl and see it empty with all the prep work going. And I posted a video on it, walking through the tunnel, and it was emotional, man. It's like we had been there before a year ago when we played UCLA, but it was not the same.
Our name wasn't painted in the end zone.
Correct. That's exactly right. And I walked into the part of the field that had the name painted on the end zone. And it just felt different. The grass looked greener, maybe because it had been raining a little bit.
The monsoon season here in LA.
But it just felt different. It felt important. It takes thousands of people to put together an event like the Rose Bowl. The support people, the TV people, the production, the facility, all the other activities that come with the Rose Bowl. They were starting to rehearse and get together. Local bands were coming and playing. And I started looking around, and there were a lot of people. As I pulled into the Rose Bowl, as I drove my car into the Rose Bowl, into the parking lot, there was a line of people around the street where the Rose Bowl floats, some of them, I think, were brought to this holding area.
Yeah.
And you could go see them or volunteer to help work on them, which Holly and Flynn did a couple days earlier. But I was looking at the line as I was coming in, and all I saw was Hoosiers. All I saw was IU gear. And I was like, is this an IU event? That's what I thought. I thought it was an IU event. I could not find an Alabama fan. And I was looking for them because then I saw that it was this Rose Bowl float thing. And I'm like, oh, well, this is not an IU event. And I was like, oh my God, is this real? Is this an outlier? Like, it just seemed like there were no Alabama fans and all Indiana fans. And I parked my car and walked up to the Rose Bowl and took some pictures and saw more Indiana fans just milling about. There weren't thousands there. There were hundreds. And I started feeling like, this is different. This is really, really different. And then walking into the Rose Bowl and feeling that was my first kind of notion that Hoosier Nation was taking over Southern California. What about you? When did you start really feeling the buzz?
Well, you see Don Fisher on the 70th floor lobby in a downtown hotel in Los Angeles, and you're like, well, this is the two worlds smashing together. And I could not be more excited about that. But then as we were flushed out of the hotel to go find where the team was arriving, and we literally just fell into step with them coming off the bus with thousands of pieces of gear and IU bags and manager and the support staff. It was like a current of IU players and support staff we got caught up in. I mean, that's really what it hit home for me, that Indiana Hoosier Nation has arrived here in what is now our hometown. And then it was arriving at our event in Pasadena the day before on December 31st. And it was like, it's you. So you do everything too early. You get me there at like 8:30 in the morning. And
Yep.
of course, nobody's there except the restaurant that's opening up early to host our event. But even just after 8:30, the first couple arrives. They're there like 25 minutes early to the event. And it's like, that's cool. But then to see going from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then by 11 a.m., not only had hundreds of people packed into our venue, but those who didn't have tickets or were not able to RSVP in time, just going to the bar next door to Rocco's and filling up that place. And so you start to see, on New Year's Eve day, a whole block just being swarmed with the good kind of cream and crimson.
And look, part of me wanted to take notes and like read off everyone's name that we met, and that we got to shake hands with. About halfway through, like probably around 10:30, my right hand started really hurting from all the handshakes and the smiles. It was humbling. I mean, it was truly humbling to see this many Hoosiers in LA come to this event and want to just hang out with other Hoosiers, something to do for a few hours the day before the big game. But I was just overwhelmed by the love that was in that room. Love for Indiana, love for each other, love for the podcast, love for just the community of being Hoosiers. And it just made me like, I had all these flashes about, we started this podcast as two idiots who just wanted an hour a week to yell at each other about Indiana basketball. That's really what this started as.
To really actually condense the amount of time we did doing that, just make it a more efficient use of yelling.
And then pretty quickly, it turned into a long-form interview show with the people who have given their blood, sweat, and tears to Indiana, both on the fields of play and behind, whether it's administrators or, coaches, whoever it is, great alumni, broadcasters, whoever it may be. And then somewhere along the way, it morphed again to not really being about any of that, but being about celebrating the community, celebrating that we are this very, like a grain of sand in this overwhelming community that we love so much of Hoosier Nation. And there's been a few times over the last many years we've been doing this where we got to be around many of those people. And it's been a little bit since we did a big event. And to do it in LA, where you and I have lived for a quarter of a century, which makes me feel really old, but it was just so incredibly special. And I just want to take a moment up top to just thank everyone for coming, even for those of you who weren't able to come but sent messages about wishing you were there and liking tweets that had pictures of the event or tuning into my stupid live streams. I just want to sincerely thank everybody for coming and for being a part of this thing, because it's going to go down as like one of the great memories of my life, being with all of you and being with you, Ward, and our families got to come, which is also not common. We have not been able to do that. In fact, I don't think we've ever been able to do that. Yeah. Where all of our families were able to come. And it was just truly special. I wish we had more time with each person that walked in. I wish we had more time.
Of course. But the nice thing is they have that time with each other. It's like a great party where even
they don't want it with us.
Yeah, no, we want it with them, but they keep moving and find people they do want to hang out with. And what is community really all about, along with the feels, having the feels, the love, the joy, the support, good times and bad. But these are certainly the best of times for Hoosier Nation and in the football capacity. But you need some place to gather. And in Bloomington, you get to do that a lot more often each home game, and in football, basketball, women's basketball, volleyball, soccer, baseball, all of it. Women's softball, we were learning more about that at the event. Uh, that is very hard for us to come by. We either need to fly thousands of miles, or it'll be a little more common here. Thank you, USC and UCLA, for being a part of the Big Ten. But for it to have this kind of significance from the granddaddy of them all to bring us all out, and something that my in-laws were there in 1968. And, they're well into their 80s now. And I think 2 years ago, none of us, especially them, would have bet that they were going to be able to watch the Rose Bowl with their grandson and daughter, and me somewhere, coming to visit them at halftime. And so to be able to gather not only at the game with 1.5 million Hoosiers, but at our event, or walking to the game, or at the lobby of the 70th floor Intercontinental Hotel, to be able to be in the same space and to see those smiles and have those conversations, those handshakes, those hugs. My new friend Carly not only gave me an IU friendship bracelet she made that week, but also gave one to give to my son and to my daughter. So
Carly, I only got one. I got one for me. How come my kids didn't get one?
I had to ask. I asked special, and she gave them up right away. Bless her heart. But that's what's so special for this to all to happen here, is to be able to do this, not just over Zoom, which is cool as it is, or on X, and as fun and extensive as that community is. It's really about being together in the same place with our family.
Yeah, at our family and our family.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. I look, I also want to say this. I had so many people come up to us and say, and this may come as a giant shock to some of you listening, and Ward, maybe even a giant shock to you, who does not spend a lot of time on social media. But there are some people out there who don't like us.
Well, hey, I've seen a little bit of that on the little bit of time I jump on X. But the way I really know about that is for every kind, beautiful person who over the last couple of days came up and said, "Hey, thank you. Appreciate what you do. Really enjoy what you guys do. I listen to every episode," or "I just started listening." So many of those people also said, "I don't know why you guys get so much hate."
Well, so this was going to be this is what I wanted to talk about a little bit. I appreciate everybody who kind of like apologizes for those people to us. But I just want you to know, like, it does not bother me in the slightest. We don't do what we do for them. We do it for you that are listening to this, that came to the event, that follow us on Twitter, that understand that we're fans. And, what we're trying to do when we kind of share experiences is try to let the people that are unable to be at those experiences experience them in some small vicarious way. And it just doesn't bother me in the slightest. I don't care. We love Indiana, and we love Indiana Hoosiers. And we love being around you and talking to you, and the number of stories, and I'm not going to reveal some of them because some of them were pretty personal, of people telling us like how they listened to our podcast and the circumstances in which they listened to it or how they found it. I don't take 1 millisecond of it for granted. You and I have joked that it shocks us when we meet somebody new that listens to us. We're like, why? Why are you doing this? But it is overwhelming and humbling and means a tremendous amount. And just being in that room and getting to bounce around from table to table and share stories and hear from, we had a bunch of former players there who found the event and just showed up, guys that played in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. And just being around all of that was special, man. I get emotional about it. I really do. And I just am so appreciative. And just wanted to take a moment near the top of the show to say thank you. I don't have better words than the sincerest, deepest gratitude that I feel towards you guys. That's all I can really articulate.
I echo that. I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Every time somebody says they love listening to the show or they always listen to the show, I am surprised. I'm not like, oh, you do. Like, I figure maybe they saw the event on X or somebody else invited them. And I'm always like, oh, you guys really are out there. Right. Because again, we're out here. We're not running into people at the Glendale Galleria who listen to the show and want to talk to us about it. And, a lot of people say, this is the first time we've ever met, but I feel like I know you because they've spent so much time listening to us talk. And I have those kind of relationships with podcasts I listen to.
Right.
And I just want those people to know, and I try to express this, that I feel that connection to you too. And I know I haven't heard you talk, but I do feel like we are all part of this community and we have a lot of the same ups and downs and the feelings, and sometimes, or in fact I would even say a lot of the time, those feelings haven't been particularly pleasant. Even with, we have events and like former players come out, those are largely joyous and positive, but usually in the context of maybe one or both of our men's basketball and football teams not doing well. And so to do it now, to be able to share the joy of the community around the pod, but more so around the whole program, the whole university, the whole fan base, when things are so positive and so joyous, there was simply no better way to end 2025 and then start 2026. But with all of you, both the day before at the event and then at the main event in Rose Bowl Stadium.
So let's talk about the main event. Day starts with, let's be honest, everybody turned into like amateur meteorologists. Everybody's checking their own weather app, tuning into whatever local channel they can find, weather channel, searching on weather.com, looking at hour by hour precipitation forecasts. And it was hairy for a while. Like the days leading up, it looked like it was going to be raining pretty hard during the game. Then about 24 to 48 hours before the game, the forecast started getting a little better. Like, oh, maybe just some light showers at the beginning of the game. But by the end of the game, maybe it's just cloudy. Then the morning of, you start hearing everybody going, we think the rain's going to stop before the game starts. And it may even be where the sun comes out by the end of the game. And in my head, I just had this vision of the game is like in the balance, hanging in the balance. Mendoza drives down the field, throws a beautiful pass to Elijah Surratt in the back of the end zone, back shoulder, of course. And then he catches it and comes down, and we go up, and it's the clinching play of the game. And with that, the clouds part, the blue skies are visible, and sun rays beam on the east side of the Rose Bowl Stadium. That's what I had in my head. And it basically happened. It basically happened.
Except the game was not in doubt after the first quarter.
So we're all just kind of figuring out, like, how are you going to get there? Are you going to Uber? Are you going to try to drive? Are you going to try to buy a parking pass?
That was the most stressful thing to me. I live 12 minutes away, and I'm like, do I just walk? Well, I mean, like literally, and up until the moment I called for my Uber, I didn't know what, even in my Uber, trying to figure out with my Uber driver where to drive me, it was chaos.
I had 7 people with me. So just finding an Uber that could fit 7 is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Have to get a minivan. So found a minivan. We all decided to go. We jump out of the car. They were able to pull us up pretty close to the stadium, and it is pouring. I mean, we all got our IU ponchos on, courtesy of Evan Martin, who brought them from Bloomington, but it is pouring. And I'm like, oh no, is this what this is going to be like? And all 7 of us, which includes my 3 kids, my ex-wife, my girlfriend's son, all one big happy, not so happy family walking in the rain, and maybe not so happy to even be there at this point because I made everybody come to this together. My kids were really excited. And we walked to a tailgate. We got some tickets to a tailgate event, and we walk into the tailgate. And even on the walk in, we're all just looking around and noticing Indiana fan, Indiana fan, Indiana fan, Indiana fan. Oh, I think I see a Alabama fan over there, but it felt like 10-1. It just felt like you had to really look for Alabama fans, and
My
Hoosiers were everywhere.
Yeah, my driver dropped me off, a little less than a mile from the stadium, and it's a downhill walk. I'd actually done that walk before, and there's a good stream of fans going to the stadium. And again, I wouldn't say it was 10-1, but it was at least 3 or 4 to 1 of Indiana to Alabama fans. And funny enough, now you start seeing those contraband selling out of their car trunk swag for the Rose Bowl, and the vast majority of that is Indiana stuff. And even at the point where I'm walking along and I hear, which was very obviously an Alabama fan, go, "How come you only got Indiana stuff? Why don't you ain't got no Alabama stuff? I want to buy some Alabama stuff."
I didn't know Daryl was an Alabama fan.
I think we did. But I was so amazed. It was like, one, it's really cool. Even the swag people know that it's all about Indiana here in Pasadena. And two, Alabama fans really do talk like that.
So we get into this thing with my kids. There's food everywhere. They got the Oregon Texas Tech game on, and we just start mingling with IU fans, and it was great. We find a table. We're set. You and I are texting because you're behind us and meeting us there, and it was cool because we weren't in the rain, but it was raining still.
Yep.
But you felt like a growing buzz for a couple hours there. We got there real early at like 9:30 a.m. It was just a party. But then as like we got, I would say about 2.5 hours out, and when you showed up, it did feel like, oh, wait a minute. The celebration has to stop for a few moments because we actually have to play a game.
Yeah.
And I started getting a little stressed. But walking around and just being with that many Hoosier fans and wanting to talk football and basketball, it was just an absolute blast to be around thousands of Hoosiers.
And maybe that collective euphoria, that between two ferns with Galifianakis and Paul Rudd, like, did you ever think we'd be here? Look at us. Who would have thought? Not me. And that's our collective mindset as a fan base. So we're all in this mood that somehow has offset for me a lot of the anxiety and butterflies of, this is our best chance ever to win the Rose Bowl. Obviously the one chance we had before, we didn't have a good chance because we lost. Clearly we had a bad chance. And the whole building up of the season and each benchmark we've cleared, and here's yet another one. And for anything I've ever gone through before as a fan of any of my teams, the better you do, the longer you go, the better the season is, the higher the stakes are raised, the more anxiety ridden it is, the stronger the butterflies are, the more they flutter. And I thought the night before, even talking about it with you, I should be feeling that more, but I just wasn't.
Wow.
And it wasn't some sort of like, I believe we're going to win. I know we're going to win. It wasn't that thought or feeling, but somehow I think all that joy and positivity, overwhelmingly so, just neutralized that. And maybe there is some element of destiny and fate going on that was just like, don't get stressed out about this. Just enjoy yourself. And even in those first couple of series, when things were a little hairy, it didn't feel like, oh my God, we're in so much trouble. It was a weird, wonderful energy that I could get used to.
I want to give one shout out that I said I would give. At our event, some of, I think, Evan's college friends showed me a picture of something that they have deemed the Popcorn Club.
The Cam Cameron fan club?
The Cam Cameron Popcorn Club, where they would go to the SRSC, where Cam Cameron was doing his weekly radio show, and they would just grill him with questions to the point where he got to know them and not like them very much. And they called themselves the Popcorn Club because on the table, there were just like boxes of popcorn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway.
The picture was great.
It was a great picture. So it comes time now, you're seeing a ton of people that people from back in Indiana, old fraternity brothers, people would come up to me and go, "Where's Ward? I'm from Peru." We get to take pictures with the trophy, with the Rose Bowl trophy.
And the lady working, and she overheard me. I'm like, "I'm sure that's not the real one." She's like, "No, yes, it is." I'm like, "Why would they let us get this close to it?"
We could have stolen it.
I do think because there was no real security presence at the whole tailgate, I think we could have got out of that tailgate with it. Eventually, we would have been able to escape the greater Rose Bowl area because of the real security. But we could have gotten at least a few hundred yards out.
Yeah. Now, I want to just set the scene also for something that I thought was cool. When they were showing the game in the middle of this giant pavilion, it was one of these temporary tents that was huge that could, seat a couple thousand people that were at that thing.
Yeah.
They had giant big screens forming a cube in the middle of it. So no matter where you were, you could see the big screens. They were playing the Oregon-Texas Tech game. But at commercial breaks, we wouldn't get the national feed. We got the CFP feed. And they would show famous alumni from each school, Indiana and Alabama, in different categories. It was like celebrities and political figures and authors and whatever. And they would go back and forth. They would show Alabama and then Indiana. Every time they showed Alabama, you would hear boo. We're just booing people that have made great contributions to society. And every time they put an Indiana person on, yay! And the most fun was, I'm wearing it with my daughters, and one of the people they put up is a guy by the name of Michael B. Higgins, who was the president of Ireland.
Yeah.
And my daughter Stella starts freaking out for it because when she was 7 years old, she had to do one of those school projects where they gave you a country and you had to do a report on it. And Michael B. Higgins became her favorite person in the world. He's about the size of a hobbit. He kind of looks like a hobbit. And she has remembered his name since, but had no idea that he was a Hoosier. By the way, great research, Stella.
That's what I'm saying. I guess it was before ChatGPT, but come on, kid.
But she freaks out. So Michael B. Higgins made an appearance every 30 minutes, and it was just hilarious that we got that. So do you want to say anything about running into all the people that you ran into that you knew throughout the day?
Well, yeah. And this was I met into Caves and Chilcote, Chill, a couple of my fraternity brothers at that tailgate. But then it was leaving that tailgate, and we're all sort of put into a pen, and then we're able to be shifted over to the actual stadium, the outside there, when you're just starting to find your concourse and go in. And that's when all the worlds started to collide. And you talk about community. I've been so fortunate, born and raised in Peru, Indiana. So many wonderful people, friends of my own, their parents, their family members, which is all a bigger part of the Peruvian community than my undergrad communities, through theater and the fraternity and the different classes. And then, we developed this podcast community as a way to stay connected to the university many years later. I get to teach now for the media school. And all of these worlds started, and all the Hoosiers we know in LA, which has been a huge part of our experience and our family and our comfort living way out here, as a lot of our a lot of kids, we were all kids together back there and came out around the same time, or we've met along the way in the industry out here. And all those worlds were colliding, even in a way they don't in Bloomington. One, because everybody was here, including a lot of people from LA. So just in the span of 2 minutes, to jump over and just grab a fraternity brother. And then one of my best friends from high school's brother, he shows up with another friend of mine and another friend's dad. And then over here is two of our best friends from undergrad who are now here in LA with us, all just smashing into each other right before going into the game. It was wonderful.
And then we go through the tunnel, which took a while to get to our seats in our section. And I will say I had to put my girlfriend and ex-wife and two of my kids were in a different section. That didn't go over all that great, but they were in a different section.
I'm not terribly proud that my wife and in-laws and son had to climb a bunch of steps.
Neither Ward nor I were with our significant others. But I was with Ward and two of my kids, my two girls. And we get into our section, and then it's just everywhere you look is somebody you know. Dr. Rink, legendary team doctor for the basketball program, is 2 rows in front of us, 1 row in front of us. Jeff Cohen, who is a big IU supporter and was a big supporter of our NIL efforts early on.
Chip
Behind
Fowl.
us, Chip Fow is there, who's also been a great supporter. Loved getting together with Chip, who, by the way, of course, wants to show us a picture of somebody making fun of us on Twitter. I won't even get into it, but he loved it.
Yeah, that was a Photoshop of us I was never expecting to see, and it was quite hilarious, especially coming from Chip. But then, just at the top of the section, there was another fraternity brother of mine who was there with his father, who has vowed to his father that he would take him to a Final Four when we got to a Final Four. But hey, I guess we're going to do the Rose Bowl instead, and it was just beautiful to see them together.
Jeff Overton, famous golfer from Indiana, was there. Jared Jeffries is there. 3 seats down from me, right next to Stella, sitting next to Stella, is a guy who I've never met, but was really a big supporter of the NIL stuff early on. And he then became best friends with Stella and was hugging her throughout the game, which got a little weird, but that's okay. No, it's okay.
I went up the steps, and to my surprise, I found myself dabbing Victor Oladipo, just passing by. It was everybody who's anybody from Indiana of the last 60 years was somewhere in that stadium.
Yeah, and I just remember looking at the countdown clock, and when we got there, it was like 40 minutes or something, and then it would turn to 30, and I am getting nervous now, getting really nervous, and can't believe it. And when it got time for kickoff, I remember recording a video and just saying, we're about to watch the kickoff of Indiana in the Rose Bowl. I mean, I just could not get my mind wrapped around it. But that quickly went away after our first drive, where we were sacked twice on a very quick 3 and out. And I'm like, that's it. It's over. It's over.
Yes, you were catastrophizing right away. I do want to say, right before the game started, and something I was realizing talking with a few of those people we ran into was, I live 12 minutes from the stadium. I drive by the stadium probably once, twice a week, and you can see the Rose Bowl on the stadium, the sign with the San Gabriels behind it from the 134. I've gone past there hundreds of times. I go over there to jog. I've been over there for the flea market. I went over there for the UCLA game last year. Never once, and I just realized this yesterday, never once had I imagined us playing there in the Rose Bowl. It didn't even occur to me, not even as a fantasy or a joke or just something to talk about on the pod. Imagine if it just didn't cross my mind that we would get to be there and doing that. So yes, as kickoff was happening, I still won't say the reality completely set in. I'm not sure it ever will.
Right.
It all just seems like the best kind of dream possible. But that's when I was like, well, it's here. There's no more not dreaming about it or wondering if. It's begun.
Every single good play, defensively, offensively, resulted in hugs and high fives with everybody around us. I mean, people were hugging each other that had never met before.
Oh, yeah.
And it was euphoria. Now, I want to merge kind of 2 things, because I came home after the game, got my victory cigar, came outside and watched the game beginning to end, and
Yes.
did not fast forward except for commercials.
Yes.
I wanted to hear everything. But watching it that way did crystallize for me the turning points in the game. Have you had a chance to
I saw some of it from the main broadcast, and then I hit most of the rest of it in the plus 60. My television was usurped last night for the Stranger Things finale. And then I was like, that's fine. I can outlast this whole family, and I'll watch the whole main broadcast at like midnight. But then 2 of my 2 kids, my wife crashed out, but they wanted to continue with watching Percy Jackson. So then I was relegated to the internet. So I will today, because my in-laws are in town and they're all off eating with Annie. I'm going to watch the main broadcast as soon as we're done with this.
So to me, in watching it, and look, you can get analysis of the game from a lot of different places, and we'll talk later to our guests more about the game. But there were 2 big turning points that are not revolutionary. I mean, everybody knows what these are, I think. But the big one, the first one, was 4th down. 4th down and 1 for them, where they start doing some crazy shit.
Some Chuck Pagano shit.
Line up as a punt. Then it's wildcat and try to get us to jump off sides, and we don't. We're disciplined.
We
okay.
don't flinch. We don't flinch.
I assumed they took the penalty. They didn't. They called a timeout. Then they come out from that timeout, and then I think we call a timeout. I think as they're like pretending now like they're going to go for it. I think there was another timeout. I could be wrong here.
Yeah, no, I thought there were 2 timeouts in that sequence. I forget who went first.
And then they come out, and now they're going for it again in the Wildcat. And this is like, oh my God, this is going to be a turning point. The score's 0-0. We're in the first quarter. If we can stop them and get the ball deep in their, oh wait, I'm conflating now. I think we're up 3-0 at this point when the fourth down thing happens. Am I wrong?
I'm bad with that, but it was in front of us. So
no. I think it was second quarter. We're up 3-0.
Okay.
After that great drive.
Right. Because ours was just we ended up having to kick that field goal on that side of the field right at the beginning of the second quarter.
Right. Exactly.
And so they were driving the other way at that point.
Yes. And it feels like, okay, if we're up 3-0, if they get this fourth down, they're going to continue this drive. They've already completed some passes, got some first downs. And then they do all this just chicanery, shenanigans, if you will. And they run some weird play. And Bones Jones meets the guy like 1 yard away from the first down marker, but the guy spins a little bit and is falling. He's going to fall for a first down. And then I think it's Elijah Hardy, who comes in and freaking crushes the guy and knocks him down. And then our whole team swarms and prevents them from getting the first down. And now we get the ball back up 3-0 in their territory. And it leads to the Charlie Becker touchdown that when you watch it on replay, I cannot believe he caught it.
I don't know how bodies can bend like that.
To jump that high, to reach that far, to grab it with your fingertips while you're going to be hit. It was like that fourth down stop was such a huge turning point. And then, of course, the next one is the fumble and the hit on Simpson when he's running on a big third down and he's got the first down. And we force a fumble, and then that leads to us scoring the next touchdown to Omar Cooper to go up 17-0 before the halftime. And the truth is, that was the game.
Yeah, you don't know it at the time. You're starting to feel good, but it was feeling bad as they were putting that drive together, and they finally crossed the 50. And it was like every time it seemed like they'd kind of been getting stopped right at the end of their territory before midfield, and they had just crossed it. And not to give myself too much credit, but I was like, we're going to get a turnover, because at that point I was starting to feel like, oh, are they going to be able to move the ball on us in a way few teams have all season, if any? And that the only way to prevent them to start to get hot, right? It seemed like they were starting to deal and we were getting a little bit back on our heels. And like we've had to do so many times this season, the defense just steps up. And as important as scoring a touchdown or any points are, or putting together a drive as an offense and wearing out a defense is, time and time again, this defense just steps up, whether it's a third and out when you need it, a stop on a fourth down, or a timely turnover. And it just felt like, well, our defense is the best defense in the country. And I think they're going to make a play. And like 2 plays later was that fumble. And to your point, we didn't know what the final score was going to be, but it just started to feel like we're in control here.
And it did feel like, and everybody was kind of talking about it there, with Alabama getting the ball back to begin the second half, if we could just stop them on that first drive of the second half. We had just scored at the end with Omar Cooper and the touchdown, but if we could just get the ball back, stop them and score, then that would be the game. And that's exactly what happened. We go up 24-0, and honestly, the rest of the game was a celebration. It was a party. It was a freaking party.
That's when you turn to Stella and you go, this is going to be such a fun game to watch when we go home on the main broadcast. And she goes, don't jinx us.
Right.
And I was like, I was feeling about as confident as you, but I'm like, that's a wise thing for her to say. I was like, but then when it went to 31, I was like, okay, now we can unabashedly start talking about our inevitable victory.
We beat them 38-3 in 3 quarters. There was no score in the first quarter.
That's right. That's right. Because again, that 3 points came right at the start of the
But
second.
I mean, take away those 3 points. We scored 35 points against Alabama in 3 quarters and really 2.5 quarters because Alberto came in at the end of the game and we didn't try to score anymore.
Well, and I think we were all nervous for good reason that the fact that we are the one and only bye team to have won a playoff game, since the playoffs started last year in that manner with buys. It's just sort of like, oh, that extra week off, that rust, the other team coming in almost like back into the normal routine after having won the first round game is bad news. And I saw that happen a lot with the Colts in the Peyton era, where it was like, we got a little rusty and soft while the other team stayed sharp. And Indiana's had some slow starts this season, where we don't put it all together in the first quarter necessarily or the first half. So for us to just kind of get a feel for the game, I think, the speed and the size of Alabama was overwhelming in the first series or so. But to see us all shake the rust off, settle in, be right where our feet are, as the coaches and players would say, and then just demolish them over, to your point, really it's the better part of 2 quarters that decided the whole game.
Evan said something to me that I loved. He said, Indiana, this team is like a train leaving a station. It takes a while for the train to get momentum. The train starts slow because it's a lot to move when you're starting from nothing. But then once it's rolling and you're going 70 miles an hour, you cannot stop it. It just rolls, and we rolled the tide over and over again. And I just kept thinking to myself, Alabama is the blue blood in college football. Since 1960, which, by the way, if you look at all-time championships in football, like Princeton and Yale are way up there. I think Yale has more than anybody at like 18 total.
But I think that's how many Bama has, 18.
16. They have 16.
60. Okay.
But since 1960, so the last 65 years.
We'll call it the modern era.
Sure. Alabama has 12 national championships. The next closest is, I believe, USC with 6 or 7.
See, and because people talk about, the last 10 or 15 years or this century, but to your point, for the last 65 years, nobody's even close.
No, they won like a couple in the 60s. They won one in the 70s. They won one in the 90s. They never went more than 13 years without winning a championship since 1960. So they are the blue blood. And to do to them what so many teams have done to Indiana teams in the past, on the grandest stage of them all, in the game that has more importance than any game either team has played this season, was just remarkable. I said this to you after the game, and I want to ask you again. I will put this now as the number one sporting event that I have ever witnessed in person. I saw the St. Louis Cardinals win Game 7 of the 2011 World Series, but this was better. This is now my number one. Where does it rank for you?
Number one.
Really? No question.
Yeah, no question whatsoever. I saw some great Pacers beat downs of the Knicks in the mid-90s playoff games.
What about when we saw Archie's Indiana team beat Minnesota by like 6?
I was honestly not even that eclipsed when they beat Eastern Illinois in his first home game.
Yeah, that was huge. That was huge.
Yeah, so I am surprised, and this is maybe a little bit of because it's recency bias, but I think you'll have a better answer for it than that. I'm a little bit surprised that topped the Big Ten championship for you, because to me, what's curious is about this whole situation is the Big Ten championship game was very tense the whole time, and you couldn't really have that, just burst of euphoria until the last play was called dead. And only then was it truly decided. And really even that missed field goal is when it was more or less decided. But those are very late and a tough fought game all the way through against the number one team in the country.
That's true.
And now it's a Big Ten championship forever. And whatever you want to say about the history and prestige of the Rose Bowl, it is now a quarterfinal game. So it's
you're right.
It's the beginning of a journey, and it's just complicated. It is just complicated with what the Rose Bowl means now, but without overthinking it, what it felt like to us, the fans, And clearly, Aiden Fisher saying, hey, as soon as I got to Bloomington, people were like, you got to get back to the Rose Bowl. It doesn't necessarily matter the context. It is the bowl game. And now it's dovetailed into this playoff scenario. And for somebody like Signetti, who has grown up in the game and knows the significance of the game and the venue, and the whole nation's watching, and the stealth bomber flies over, and it's all the things. So for me, that's an easy choice, but I would think for anybody at the Big Ten championship game like yourself, it's tougher.
Yeah, it's funny. I put it ahead without thinking much about it, but when I think about it, I think it's for a few reasons. By the way, the Big Ten championship is probably number 2 for me.
Yeah.
But this is going to sound weird, and I hate even saying this, but had we lost the Big Ten championship, but won the next game, and then maybe made a run, the season is successful and like there's no disappointment whatsoever. But had we lost to Alabama in the Rose Bowl game, in the first CFP game that we were playing in this season, I think there would have been some disappointment. And I don't think I would have been disappointed if we lost to Ohio State, but then went on a run. If we lost to Ohio State in the CFP at any point, yes.
Right.
But it wasn't win or go home.
Right.
There is something about win or go home that matters. And I did not grow up wistfully dreaming about playing in the Big Ten championship game because it didn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, but the Rose Bowl, every single year I watched the Rose Bowl. I watched the parade. I was excited for the game, even when we had nothing to do with it. But if you're a casual football fan, you know the Rose Bowl. Yeah. It is the granddaddy of them all for a reason. And there was something just more epic about it. And the fact that it wasn't in Indiana, the fact that it wasn't like an hour away from where we play home games, it just felt more epic and more special. Also, there's been 3 weeks off before the game. Mm-hmm. And having those 3 weeks to build anticipation for sure helped make it what it was. So, yeah, I give the edge to the Rose Bowl. And I've told people this morning, I'm like on a happy hangover. I don't drink, so I don't really know what a hangover feels like, but I feel like exhausted and spent, but just this glow of, I cannot believe this is what we get to root for. I am so grateful to Scott Dolson and Kurt Signetti and Brian Haynes and Mike Shanahan and Fernando Mendoza, and I could name them all. I'm just so grateful that we as a community get to root for this, that the second we are done recording this, I will be watching the game again.
Hell yeah. We did completely blow past the parade, something you and I have never been to.
No, again, I did. I've been to it.
Oh, you have? Okay.
When I first moved out here, I went for about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
And because I thought I had to go see it because it's the Rose Bowl parade, and hated it and got the hell out of there.
Yeah. Well, 10 minutes from my house, can't be bothered to get up that early in the morning and fight those crowds, especially when my team's not playing in it. Or now that my team is playing in it, I need to save my energy and my focus and my concentration for the game. But we did jump on to the TV to watch the IU Marching 100, which was so cool. And what was really cool is the way it's set up. You can go to different stations, ABC, NBC, local affiliates, and they're all set up at different stops along the parade route. So we went through 3 different channels following along with the Marching 100 and getting different perspectives from the commentators, different parts of what the Marching 100 were doing. And they sounded great. They looked great. They were battling it through it in the rain, and just so proud to see them there. And obviously the Jacobs School of Music is one of the great schools of music on planet Earth. And that's not something that gets nearly enough love in the world, in the press, in the media, of how many world-class musicians come through that school every year. And there they are on national TV being watched by millions. And to watch it in 3 different feeds was great. And they clearly sounded better than the Alabama band.
I love that.
Another good omen. Another good omen.
I will tell you something funny about the parade. So I'm up really early on New Year's Day. I'm up at 5:30 a.m. just thinking about how we're going to get there, looking at weather forecasts, and excited to see the parade start at 8 a.m. local time. So I tune in on the national feed, I think ABC, and I'm watching it. And the first thing that happens in the parade are about 8 people dressed in red singing live "We Will Rock You" in in the rain. And it was the most pathetic thing I've ever seen in my life. They didn't sound all that great. I don't know what that was to kick it off. Magic Johnson is the Grand Marshal. It just looked weird. And then I was like, you know what? I don't need to watch the parade right now. I'm just going to get ready for the game and get excited and hyped up for the game. Let's cut to the end of the game because we stayed, what do you think we stayed, an hour after the game inside the stadium? 45 minutes to an hour?
Yeah, I'd say an hour.
Watch the full celebration, watch the trophy ceremony, which was awesome. And we need to talk about 2 things. Last week's podcast, we took turns taking our predictions on who would be the player of the game, who would be the guy that would do something that would be memorable here. I picked Kalon Black, who,
Great
by the way,
choice. Great choice.
great game.
He had an amazing game.
Ward picked Pat Coogan. And he did it almost tongue-in-cheek, but he did it. He said, I'm going unconventional. I'm going unconventional.
It wasn't tongue-in-cheek. It was like I wanted to definitely be different. I did because there's like 3 or 4 easy picks.
Mendoza, Surratt, Black, Hemby, easy picks.
But and also somebody who would never get the shine, somebody who would never get the proper let's say adulation for what he was doing ever. You know, they're certainly not on national TV or in a trophy ceremony.
When they announced Pat Coogan was the offensive player of the game or the Rose Bowl player of the game, Ward and I lost our minds. We lost our minds. It is the greatest prediction of all time.
Because I mean, maybe a half hour prior, I was just saying how surprised I was when fans of the podcast would come up and say, I really appreciate your guys' insight and your analysis. And I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm talking about.
We don't know what we're talking about.
And you're like, nobody knows what they're talking about. I'm like, yeah, but I really don't know what I'm talking about.
To further prove that no one knows what they're talking about, someone posted this on X. They listed all of, I think there was 8 ESPN pundits or analysts, college football pundits and analysts before the season, picked their college football playoff teams, who would be the 12 teams. Not one of them picked the semifinalists.
Not one. 4.
I don't mean that they didn't pick all 4. Not one picked any one of the 4 semifinalists.
To get to the semifinals or to get in the playoffs?
To get to the semifinals.
Wow.
You had 8 people. They each could pick 4. That's 32 picks. They were 0 of 32.
Well, and this is the perfect example. And this includes Indiana crushing Alabama in the Rose Bowl. This is not your father's college football landscape anymore. It's over. Whatever you thought about the traditional landscape of who the Blue Bloods were, who are going to have all the powers. Is Georgia still here? Is Ohio State still here? Is Kalen DeBoer still a good coach at Alabama? Yes, of course. But when you look at who got into the playoffs, who's in the Final Four, it's wide open in a way it hasn't been in a long, long time, if not forever.
Watching my daughters trying to snatch confetti was so much fun. The confetti was flying. They were trying to grab a piece. And I'm just looking at them going, they're trying to catch confetti because Indiana just won the Rose Bowl. It was remarkable.
And as those confetti cannons go off and the fireworks go off and you look over and the Goodyear blimp is flying through. And, you know, you want to talk about nostalgia and growing up New Year's Day and watching the Rose Bowl that IU wasn't playing in. And those are the things, the Goodyear blimp and the San Gabriel's in the background. And that's like, you've got all that in person surrounding you along with 65,000 Indiana fans.
And then seeing the big screen say Rose Bowl champions, Indiana Hoosiers, and then watching the band, the Marching 100, leave the stands and come onto the field and form a bit of a formation with the Red Steppers on one side and the cheerleaders are there. And they just did like a 20-minute concert where they started with ABBA's Fernando, which was
Yes.
awesome.
That was awesome. One note, though. I mean, a real note here. You had the vast majority of the fans still in the stadium. You got to play the fight song. You got to, like, after the trophy ceremony, right then and there, you should have just let us all, as a collective fan base, scream that from the top of our lungs without the game going on and just full concentration on that moment. That was a real missed opportunity. They did it at the end when at least 70% of the people had left.
Yes. But being there and staying through it was so special. My brother and his wife were there. At that point, Holly and Mandy and Julian and Flynn had made their way over to us.
Oddly, that's the moment that got me. Like when your whole family got together and I knew my family was in it, but like I started to lose it a little bit when Holly and Mandy showed up and I'm like, why is this happening now? And I kind of hid it from all you guys. But for whatever reason, seeing the ladies, I just dropped my guard and that's when it really was overwhelming.
And they're dancing. We're dancing to the band. We're having fun. And then the walk out, all the celebration with people in the concourse level of the Rose Bowl. And then walking a mile and a half with thousands of Indiana fans. We're trying to just get to a point where we can call an Uber. But I'm smoking a victory cigar with my brother, walking the streets of Pasadena.
That's great.
People are passing us going, Eric, where's the victory cigar? I'm like, it's right here. It's right here. It was just marvelous. It was beyond words, man.
I'm very sad I didn't just start walking with you guys. There was like 15 fraternity brothers in town, and the thought was we'd all gather at a post-game tailgate, but I think the one guy who had a setup kind of got pushed out of the grass. So I was left to my own devices there for a while after you left, and I let Annie and her parents go ahead. I didn't want them to wait for me. But then I'm like, well, shoot, I do kind of need to get out of here now. But it was fun. I was binging around, running into some new friends, ran into Jared Kelly. And so that was cool too, just being all by myself and having these interactions. And then I'm like, oh, I kind of make my way out to where the buses are and seeing a few of the players and support staff come up and people are lined up to watch people getting onto the buses. But then I'm like, all right, I'm not going to be able to see the fraternity guys. Eric's gone. My other friends are gone. The family's gone. Wait, the family might be stuck in traffic. Excuse me.
So this is what happens when you lose your voice screaming at the Rose Bowl and the event before it.
I look at the location finder of my wife and it's like, she's like a 15-minute walk still here in the greater Rose Bowl complex. I bet I could catch up to her if the traffic's bad enough. So I call her. She's like, yeah, we're not really moving. I'm like, okay, I'm going to truck it after you. And she's like, okay, cool. If you're not here when it starts to move, we'll just pull over. I'm like, perfect. So I start trucking, but it's pretty late now. And there's still quite a few sort of tailgates going on, but nobody's walking. And I'm like going in a direction that's not towards Old Town Pasadena where I think other people are. So I'm kind of walking by myself and it's dark and there's not really any other traffic on this road. I'm like, well, we live in Glendale. They're going to Glendale. So it's probably different from where a lot of the traffic was being routed. And it's just late now. So it's cleared out. So I'm getting closer and I'm getting closer. And now it's saying that and she's like, hey, we pulled over. We're waiting for you. Traffic let up. And I'm like, okay, great. And then it's like, they're 300 feet away. And I look up and they're not. Nobody's 300 feet away. There's no cars. There's no pedestrian traffic. And then I see it says, well, this is where her location was 25 minutes ago.
Oh, no. No.
So she pulls over somewhere else where there's a signal that says you're now a 25-minute walk from where.
Goodbye. You're on your own, Ward.
So at that point, and I'm wearing these work boots that are waterproof, and I've got like 8 blisters going, and I'm going on blind, dark curves without sidewalks in the Arroyo under 2 bridges, and I'm like, this is awful. But we find out that Mike Nelson and Courtney Cowan are just getting in their car in a Pasadena neighborhood, and they can sweep by and grab me. So they come find me in an obscure Pasadena neighborhood, pick me up, and then we have to stop and wait for a 15-bus caravan of Indiana football players and Indiana support staff to go past.
Gladly.
Just Mike's honking the horn. We're cheering and screaming. We're like, well, this is the reason it had to end like this, so we could send the crew off. with one more round of love. And then we all came back here and had some barbecue Annie made, and just relished in the day as it was for my in-laws and Annie and Mike and Courtney, and a beautiful end to a beautiful day.
And now we're a week away from doing it again in Atlanta. We're in the Final Four, competing for a national championship. I want to just revel. I don't even want to think too much about Oregon right now. I just want to revel in this. And I think it's the perfect time to bring in our first guest to help provide the context for what we all got to witness on New Year's Day.
Let's do it.
Here comes our guest. Here comes our guest.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Hoosiers of all ages, we are here with the man, the myth, the legend, live from an airport. Burbank, right? We're in Burbank. You've learned
actually in Vegas at the moment, waiting for a connection.
Eric, who is this mystery man?
If you want to talk to somebody to contextualize what in the world is happening with IU football, you talk to this gentleman. He has covered every major Indiana sport for the better part of 2.5 decades, I believe. He is the man. He was there live. He saw it with his own eyes, and he wrote about it with his own hands. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the publisher of Pigs. He is the rabbi of recruiting. He is DJ Jazzy Jeff Rabjohns.
Gentlemen, how we doing?
Oh, you know how we're doing, Rabby. We couldn't be doing better, brother.
You guys were excited pre-game. I can only imagine what it was like during and then after.
During, after, forever after. Eric said it very well. You're the king of contextualizing what all this means to Hoosier Nation. We've talked about it a little bit, of this continuing paradigm shift of every time the Hoosiers hit like some new benchmark of historic proportions, it helps shift not just our own mindset, but that of all of college football, both from the pundit side, from the coaching side, other players, like what Indiana University football is. What does winning the Rose Bowl in such dominant fashion over the Alabama Crimson Tide, how does that further shift the paradigm?
I think what we're seeing, what we saw, and it's continuing. It's not a one moment thing, but every moment takes what we're witnessing to a completely different level. I think what we're seeing is the current Indiana football reality surpasses even the fanciful dreams of the most ardent fans. You know, there was no path of logic where you could have said, you know what, if they hire a new coach, they're going to be number one in the country in 2 years in football. Then there's no logical path for that. Nobody would have made that claim. And even, you know, I have some friends who their parents went to the game in 68, or maybe they were young and they heard about it, knew about it. But they even sort of like, I want a Rose Bowl before I die kind of mentality. But it was sort of a dream. It was sort of wouldn't be nice. It was very wistful. It wasn't like, oh, okay, you know, we're stud quarterback, 2 receivers, and stud linebacker away from probably being able to beat number 1 Ohio State and being able to go on the road and beat a top 5 team in the country in Oregon like we've never done. We're right there from winning at Penn State for the first time ever. Nobody thought that. This is the reality has surpassed the wild dreams. I think that's really what we're seeing. And I think, you know, this is the greatest story in college football history. The program that had the most losses ever is now number 1 in the country. And it beat number 1 to reach number 1. And I think it's the greatest story in college football history. It's the greatest story in college sports history, I believe, at least among major sports. And I actually think a case can be made pretty easily that it's one of the greatest stories in the history of all major American sports. Because you went from absolutely the bottom, the most losses, to number 1 in the country. And you didn't get to number 1 in the country for 1 week and then you got beat. You got to number 1 in the country, and then you went to the Rose Bowl and you smashed the program that has been the best program in the country for probably about 15 years, something like that. Multiple national champions. Over the last 15 years, Alabama has the most national championships. And Indiana crushed them. 38-3, 17-0 at halftime. IU had the longest drive in the 112 years of Rose Bowl history in terms of time elapsed at 8 minutes and 55 seconds. And that came against an Alabama defense with multiple 5-star startings. An Alabama defense that people talked up and said, well, Indiana's never faced this. People said, oh, well, Oregon, and they poo-pooed it. Ohio State, oh, they had a bad game. Oh, it's like people were constantly making excuses. No, Oregon's really freaking good, and Indiana beat them in Autzen Stadium. Ohio State's really freaking good. I know they had a bad game, but they were number one in the country for most of the season and deserved it with how they were playing. And Indiana beat them. And Indiana held Ohio State to a powerful offense, held on a one touchdown. And the one touchdown came after a turnover deep in Indiana territory. Ohio State had a high-powered offense with 2 studs at receiver who are going to be playing for a long time in the NFL, and they could not mount a sustained drive against Brian Haynes and Aiden Fisher and D'Angelo Pons and Bones Jones and, all those other just absolute studs that Haynes has recruited and developed, and the system that he's put in place. And then you go up against Alabama, people are like, well, they haven't faced it. It's always, well, they haven't faced this. Every week, well, they haven't faced this. Well, yeah, they have. And the truth of the matter is they've kicked the living crap out of this week after week after week. That's the reality of what's happened. It's funny, I was talking to Malcolm Moran, he's a professor with the IU journalism program, the Indy-based one. And he used to write for the New York Times, USA Today. He was like one of the main national guys in the country covering college sports for probably the better part of 3.5, 4 decades. And I said, okay, is there a comparison? And I've asked other people that, friends who cover the NFL. I even reached out to some people who cover hockey, like, I don't know hockey. So is there a hockey comparison? I don't know. But they said, no, nothing close. And then he mentioned the 69 Mets, but he made the point, like, they were awful for I think it was 6, 7 years, something like that, and then went from terrible to the World Series, but they were only awful for 6 or 7 years. Indiana had decades of being terrible.
We hadn't won a bowl game in 31 years.
and they had only won 3 bowl games, in the program's history. There was no history at all. So that's why I think this is the stuff of lore. This is beyond the Milan Miracle, because that was nice. It was special, but that's winning the tournament. I'm not downplaying it. It was great. It's worth the movie Hoosiers, but winning the tournament, you pull a couple upsets and you get to hold up the big trophy. It's a great achievement. It's a wonderful movie. It's a wonderful story, but it's not the same as Indiana coming from the absolute cellar of college football, especially at a time when college football is the most important sport on college campuses right now, and it is not even remotely close. And I say that as somebody who covers Indiana. The reality is college football is driving everything in college sports. Conference realignment, all about football. Mega TV and media rights deals, all about football. The eyeballs, all that stuff, it's all about football. So the teams that have been powers, the traditional powers, they're investing even more than before in football. So the path to go from the bottom to the top, in a way, is more difficult and involves more than ever before. You need NIL. You need an elite coach. You have to have people really understand the quarterback position. You have to have somebody like a Brian Haynes who can cook up crazy, his phrase, by the way, which I like, and be able to handle teams like Oregon, teams like Ohio State, receivers like Ohio State has, receivers like Alabama has. You need so many things to have a chance to be elite. And you can have those things and be good but not great. And Indiana has found a way with what it has put together to go from terrible to blow past good to great. This is a great football team that Indiana has on the field this season. There's no question about it. And what they were achieving, you guys were there. The Rose Bowl was, I would say, at least 70% IU fans, probably a little more. But, sitting up in the press box, you could really tell on a couple of third downs when the towels started waving. It's like, okay, whoever's waving one of those towels, that's an Indiana person right there. And I wish I would have been able to grab my phone quicker and get a little video of it, because it was at least 70%, probably a little more. And when is the last time somewhere around 70, it seats what, 90,000? I think they said 90,000 and change. Somewhere around 65, 70,000 people were IU fans. That's how much Hoosier Nation has got into this. And the other component of yesterday, of New Year's Day, 2026, is this. The Rose Bowl is still the holy grail from a historical standpoint for Big Ten teams. For decades, the Big Ten teams, the goal was we want to get to the Rose Bowl. And if you got to the Rose Bowl, you had a great season. If you won the Rose Bowl, magical season. And it's like living in your neighborhood, and there's this great party on New Year's Day every year, and everybody else gets to go, but not you. You don't get to go. You got to watch your neighbor. The people up in Northwestern don't really take care of the lawn. They get invited. You see Illinois, they kind of like they got a crappy, they need to repaint that house, but they got to go a few years ago. And you're sitting there going, no, we don't get to go. And now you finally get to go. And so it is still the Rose Bowl. If Indiana would have, I understand in the current format, it's a playoff game. I get that. But if Indiana would have won a quarterfinal game, the Cotton Bowl, that's the Fiesta Bowl, it's not the same. Aiden Fisher said that when he arrived, we're there when the team arrives. And he even mentioned when he got to IU, he heard from former players, from fans, just from some administrators, man, we really want to get to the Rose Bowl. We want to get back. We want Rose Bowl. We want the Rose Bowl. It wasn't like, oh, we want to go to the Sugar Bowl. We're going to go to Fiesta. No, it was the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl still is the Rose Bowl. And that's another layer that makes New Year's Day 38-3 over Alabama so special for the players, for the school, for the program, everything. Talking to Scott Dolson, athletic director Scott Dolson, on the field after the game, he told the story of how he was driving. They're riding in. He's on the bus. They the 5, 6, 7 buses that bring team personnel in, and he's looking. And as they get close to the stadium, IU fans are lining the route. IU fans, they didn't just go to the game. They figured out, okay, when's the team going to arrive? What's the route going to be? IU fans were lining, and he said, I called my wife and said, of all the things I'll remember about my career, this is one thing I will always remember. I will never forget this. Driving toward the Rose Bowl, and IU fans are lining the streets, lining the route. They're in the thousands are already in the parking lot to cheer the arrival of the team. And that's just an example of why this is not just special. It's not just a moment. It is a piece of the greatest story ever in college football, ever.
Amazing. Eric, one quick follow-up on that, and then passing it over to you. You talked about 75% of the Rose Bowl being IU fans. So you extrapolate the math, let's see, 65,000 Hoosiers were in there. And you're starting to push, that's like 10% of the living alumni base. Now, obviously, there were Hoosier fans there that were not alum, but you talk about there was a sizable fraction of all of us from across the nation, across the globe, in the same place. That team has brought us together in a way even beyond what can happen at a home game in Bloomington. And it was such a special moment in time. And I just can't imagine a better guy on earth to contextualize it the way you just did. Eric, you've got some more on that front.
Well, let me follow up. I'll hang with you for however long you want. But let me follow up on that. That's a great point that people came from all over. We're at your meet and greet there in Pasadena. And, it's like, talking to people, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm from Florida. I'm from Atlanta. I'm from New York. I'm from DC. I'm from Fishers, Indiana. I'm from, all over Chicago. Some guy was from Wyoming. I'm like, how do you get to Wyoming? Let's go, he's interested. But, and I'll use my friend Kent Davis as an example. Okay. He's an IU grad. He lives down there in Atlanta. He was trying to figure out what games to go to. Well, I use the Big Ten championship game. Big game, expensive ticket, as everybody knows. Okay, well, all right, going to pay the money. Flight, it's expensive ticket, couple nights in a hotel, but it's IU in the Big Ten championship game. Got to go. They win that. Rose Bowl comes up. Oh, man, really, really expensive flight, really expensive ticket. It's IU in the Rose Bowl. What's he do? He goes. And I'm just using him as an example because I ran into other people who were doing the same thing. There was a man who was a grandfather, he and his wife, both kids, and a number of grandkids, turned it into a family trip. And he volunteered this. I didn't ask him, but he said, yeah. He said, it's And it's probably going to cost us about 10, 12 grand for this trip. And if they win, we're doing it again. I don't know if we're going to borrow against the house or what, but we're going. As long as we're playing, we're going. May get a second mortgage, may get a third. I don't know, but we're going. And that is how enraptured, I think, the fan base is with what is happening with Curt Cignetti and the 2025 Indiana football team.
So two quick follow-ups. One on what Ward was talking about with the fans, and let's just call it 60,000. Let's just call it, that's probably a low end, but let's call it that. That means that the Rose Bowl in 2025 was the place where more fans of Indiana saw an Indiana football game than in the history of the program. Memorial Stadium only holds like what, 55,000? And there's no world where the Pinstripe Bowl had more, IU fans. There were more fans in attendance at the Rose Bowl than have ever been in attendance for any IU football game in the history of the program. That is staggering.
That really, wow. Yeah, Memorial Stadium, 52,626. And I would wager a large sum of money there were more IU fans than that at the Rose Bowl.
Absolutely.
Without question. But that's a great point.
So the other thing I just want to, because it's me, I have to push back on one thing. I agree with you about how hard it is to turn a football program around. But I will say, with all the talk on college sports and what's going on with college sports, the truth is Indiana does not turn it around like this with the old system. It doesn't. This new system allowed, it brings in one more factor to it than existed before. Before, you needed the coach. You had to have the coach that could bring it together. Now you need the coach and you need the resources. Indiana won the lottery on both. The fans have stepped up and supported the team with resources, and Scott Dolson and Pam Whitten struck whatever is better than gold with Curt Cignetti, and they got it done. So I just want to say that. I read your article, Rabby, about the game where you kind of contextualized it, and it is beautiful. And for anybody out there who is not a Peegs.com subscriber, Rabby, Jared Kelly, and Matt Weaver, who were all at the Rose Bowl, are simply the best in the world at covering Indiana athletics. And I printed out your article, and I just want to read a couple of the passages. A couple of them you kind of already said, so I'll skip over those. But I just want to read a couple of the passages because they made me emotional reading them. The first is the first two paragraphs. And forgive me, Rabby, indulge me for reading your words. I'm sure my voice reading your words is not as good as you writing them, but I'm going to say them anyway. The glorious dream that is the 2025 Indiana football season soared to territory previously existing only in the imagination. The number one ranked Hoosiers winning the Rose Bowl for the first time in school history. A program that once had the most losses in major college football history destroyed the most successful major college football program of recent years. And I'm just skipping ahead here. Now, the 2025 Indiana football team is one of the greatest stories in college football history, one of the greatest stories in college sports history, and just maybe one of the greatest stories in American sports. Skipping ahead more. For days leading up to the Rose Bowl, Indiana fans descended on Southern California in droves and created an Indiana atmosphere in the storied venue. Hotels in downtown Los Angeles, Indiana gear seemingly in every lobby. The bars and restaurants in Pasadena, Indiana fans everywhere you walked. At times during the game on Thursday afternoon, it sounded like Memorial Stadium back in Bloomington. The rain stopped prior to the game, and the only deluge was what the Hoosiers poured on the Crimson Tide. And then if I could, just skipping ahead here till the end, the last couple paragraphs. This season, the Hoosiers handed the then number one Ohio State 13-10 in the Big Ten Championship, ended their Rose Bowl drought, then slammed Alabama to the ground to put an exclamation point on this, their most recent historical achievement. The Indiana team that won at Iowa, something IU rarely has done, that beat number 3 Oregon on the road, that has the first Heisman Trophy winner in school history, that destroyed Purdue again to have a combined score of 122-3 the past 2 years against its rival, that reached number 1 in the AP poll for the first time in school history, that won 12 regular season games for the first time in school history, that won at Penn State for the first time in school history, is also this. For the first time in school history, the Indiana Hoosiers are Rose Bowl champions. It's just beautiful stuff, Rabby. The whole article is amazing. It got me emotional reading it. And I just wanted to read a couple of the passages because I asked you this on the phone, and I'll ask you it here. You're a journalist. You come to the Pasadena event where people were so happy to see you and Weaver and Jared, you can't be wearing the IU gear that all of us wear. You have to have some line. But when you cover a team and a program and learn the people, not just the administrators and the coaches and the players, but the fans that you've had to connect with for as long as you have done it, was there a moment or were there moments where you were able to take the journalist hat off for just a minute and just enjoy what you were seeing for Indiana football?
Oh, absolutely. I think um, there's a time, and I think it's appropriate to be human. You don't have to be unhuman to be objective when you write and report. You can actually be a human being. And, I had a friend of mine, JD Hamilton, who I've known for pushing, I don't know, almost 30 years now. He came and he actually stayed with me one night. And, to see, it's nice to sometimes see things through other people's eyes and to see his unbelievable joy the night before. It was like a 7-year-old before Christmas. And to hear his stories and to hear his stories about his parents and their longtime IU fandom, to hear Matt Weaver's stories of growing up in an IU household and his parents' stories, you definitely feel it. And I think the moment that I felt it the first time was walking on the field, and I'm just walking around. I'm actually looking at the field, trying to figure out what's going on with the turf, as I can try to do something. But I also had moments, because we had almost 3 hours, and so you're watching some of these people come in, and you can see on their faces there was a little bit of awe, there was a little bit of just absolute stunned reaction. They're not grasping it just yet. They're and one person even asked me to take a picture of him and his wife. I said, sure, no problem. And I looked at it, and the look on their faces, it is just incredible joy and awe. We're IU fans. We're here. Our Hoosiers are here at the Rose Bowl. And yeah, I think it was an incredible moment for all the fans. And I think, I'm obviously, Signetti's done the work. The assistants have done the work. Players have done the work. I'm really happy for the fans because there are people who have been IU football fans, you guys included, your families included, for decades. And there were years, a number of years strung together, where there wasn't a lot of joy. You followed something you loved, but it might have been a little bit painful. You loved something that didn't necessarily love you back.
Decades were strung together.
Decade. You're right. I'm sorry. Decade. Let's put this in the proper context. Decades. And people still continue to love IU football, still continue to care. And it might not have been a large group, but they were a passionate group. Andy Graham, the former Herald Times sports writer who's on the Pigs board and has great posts with incredible historical notes and a recall of moments. And he also, has great context in this. You read some of those things and you can almost hear in the words the agony of, I love this thing and why won't it get going and why can't we be Iowa or something like that. And people have been rewarded with, they're not Iowa, they're better. They're number one in the country. It's almost like, you put in your Christmas list for 60 years and you get nothing. And then all of a sudden on the 61st year, you get everything you ever wanted and more. But it was really nice. It was really very, very human and almost visceral in a way. to talk to some of those people and to see their reaction. And then post game, that was just that to me, that's the best moment I've ever been around in sports. I was fortunate in my career, got to do some cool stuff, been to Final Fours, covered some Colts winning the Super Bowls and those kind of things. That's great. But the Colts, whether they win a Super Bowl in Miami or in Phoenix or, wherever, it's sort of like it's a Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is bigger than college football. I understand that. I'm not talking about scope of achievement here as far as the number of people that follow it. What I'm talking about is the impact on a fan base of an extended run that surpassed their dreams and had a moment that they were wistful for, like my Hoosiers in the Rose Bowl. And on top of that, my Hoosiers winning the Rose Bowl. And on top of that, my Hoosiers crushing the best team in the country over the past decade plus, a team that has been talked up from a conference that's been talked up, and my Hoosiers walked them back to the woodshed, beat the snot out of them, threw them on the ground, left them there, and I, as an IU fan, get to enjoy all of this. Those were the things that I think just being on the field felt visceral to me. They really felt tangible.
What and beyond our fan base, you can see it online, you can see it to a certain degree on television, that we've been these, I would say, lovable losers, just in that nobody was ever threatened by us. Nobody ever kind of hated us. Maybe if we had a couple good years on Purdue, it raised their ire a little bit, but overall they've had superiority in the old Oaken bucket. And so I think what makes it even more fun is, and hopefully in 2 or 3 years, everybody hates us because this is just the new normal. But right now, with that history, I'm even having Ohio State fans say how much they like us and they're rooting for us. And everybody else, whether it's blue bloods who are like, how can you not love this team? How can you not love Mendoza or Sig or the whole mentality, or other schools that never had a chance? Say, like, well, if Indiana can do it, any of us can. So it is a story that I think has just been swept up, that it's so special for us, but that even people outside of it can be like, we are all witnessing a history here that is not only unprecedented, but it kind of just gives you faith in humanity again.
Yeah, it does have those tones to it because the people involved are people you want to see do well. They're the kind of people you're like, Fred Signetti, he's about the right things. And, he good person. This isn't Bobby Petrino with some chick on the back of his motorcycle and all that, nonsense. This is a straight arrow guy who you'd be happy if he was your neighbor, if he was, at your church or, whatever. And you look at the assistants and the same thing. And then you look at the players. I mean, could you draw up anybody more perfect than Heisman Trophy winner Fernando Mendoza?
No.
And I don't mean as a player. I mean the way he carries himself, the way he talks in public, whether it's talking to us, the beat writers on a week-to-week basis, whether it's, doing amazing things like going to the Heisman Trophy, whole process, the 2 or 3 days they were out there, doing things for people who, are going through MS, which obviously has been something close to him with his mom going through that. But he didn't just go out there and mention, hey, let's do something for MS. He gets a hold of Adidas and says, hey, let's actually do something. What can we do? Brings other families that have been hurt by it, gives them a $10,000 shopping spree. That doesn't fix things, but that shows he's actually thinking about other people to the point of, what can I do? Not just what can I say, what can I do? Excuse me. And out here, we talk to the star players pretty regularly, Aiden Fisher, Stephen Daly, Roman Hemby, Kellen, Wyatt, Kalen Black, those people. We talk to them regularly, but out there at the Rose Bowl, everybody has to be made available who's on the 2 deep plus specialists. So somewhere around 47 or so players in there. They're talking to everybody. Then they're talking to Daniel and Duquay, who obviously was pressed into action because Wyatt goes out, Daly comes in, stud. Daly gets hurt. Duquay's going to come in. Oh, by the way, we're going to ask you to play a lot. And your first game, it's the Rose Bowl. We're number 1 in the country. You're going to face Alabama. How much it helped us win the Rose Bowl for the first time in program history. The Rose Bowl's been around for 112 years, and we're going to need you. Okay, you good? But talking to Duquay, it's like he's put him in the list too of guys who you look at and go, if you're an IU fan Every single person I've talked to, going down to Brendan Frankie, the kicker, who is funny, by the way, really funny. You look at him, you say, if you're an IU fan, if you're an IU alum, when those guys are not only on the field, but when they're on camera, when they're around town, when they're in a hotel where some players tend to wander about and do different things, you look at all the Indiana kids, at least all the ones that I've talked to, and I probably talked to at least probably pushing 38 to 40 of them so far this season. Every single one of them, if you're an IU grad, if you're an IU fan, you would be like, that guy plays for me and I'm damn proud of it. Every single one of them.
It's funny you mentioned, that before people would say, Indiana fans, why can't we just be like Iowa? Why can't we just be like, name another kind of middling Power Four team? I can't think of a better compliment for Cignetti and this program that they are now the program that other teams say, why can't we be them? Why can't we be like Indiana? Why can't we get a coach like Cignetti?
Well, and it's not middling or bad programs that are saying that. The best programs in the country are saying that too.
I know. No, it is simply beyond my capabilities as for words, not yours, Rabby, because as I read before, you capture it in such a succinct, amazing way. You're at an airport, you're heading back to Indiana. It is now a short time frame before the next game,
Yeah.
I have booked my Atlanta tickets and I got my notice that check-in is in 5 days. I'm like, what the hell? Like, this thing is quick. Looking forward, we have and yes, I'm using we for Indiana football now. We have toppled every mountain and every obstacle we have cleared that's been in front of us at Penn State, at Iowa, at Oregon, Ohio State on a neutral site, win the Big Ten championship, Heisman. There is one thing we have not done, which is played a team that has a genuine chip on their shoulder for us. None of the teams we've played have had a genuine chip on their shoulder for us. We were the upstart. Oregon has a chip on their shoulder for us because of what we did in Eugene at their stadium. Looking ahead, what do you see for this? I'm not asking you to make a prediction necessarily, but what do you see in this rematch against a team who we know has elite talent? They have an elite coach. They are playing elite football right now. What they did to Texas Tech is amazing. What do you see in the future for a week from today, meaning this coming Friday?
Yeah, I think it's a really big challenge. I really think Oregon's the best team that Indiana played all year. Ohio State was better earlier, but when Indiana played them, Ohio State was not playing their best. Now, a lot of that had to do with Indiana. Okay, I mean, Ohio State. It sounds silly to say the number one team in the country was not the best team. They were on paper. They had the best resume. But when you look at Dante Allen, all the offensive weapons, all the 4- and 5-star guys that Dan Lanning has in his system on both sides of the ball, I really think Oregon's the best team that they played. They're top 10 in the country in scoring. I'm trying to double check. The defensively, they're pulling it up here. I think they're still top 10. Yeah, they're 6th. So they're top 10 in the country, both sides of the ball. And I understand Ohio State was as well too. I'm just saying, I thought Oregon was a little more complete. Ohio State did great things. The resume said number one, but they had like 2 or 3 paths to victory. Oregon has 5, 6, 7, 8 paths to victory. Their defense can turn you over. They've got guys in the secondary with speed and ball skills, as we saw when they played Indiana. They can take a turn. They can get defensive scores. You throw a pick against Oregon, it might be a pick 6. Those guys have legit ball skills, and they turn and go on a dime. You have an elite quarterback, a guy who entering the season was listed as one of the Heisman Trophy favorites, and I think deservedly so based upon his resume entering the season. Didn't quite play up to it, but the talent didn't go away. It's not like Dante Allen forgot how to play football. He just had some tough games. So I think it's the toughest. I think it's the best team, the most complete team, the team that has the most different ways to win a game. That's what I think. Alabama was a really good team. They had a ton of 4- and 5-star talented players on the roster. Didn't exactly go the way it should have gone for them with the amount of talent that they had. But again, in the Rose Bowl, that was because Brian Haynes, Aiden Fisher, and those guys just absolutely crushed them on defense. I mean, they ran over. Indiana manhandled Alabama. Think about it, how insane that is to even say. Indiana manhandled Alabama. And that's actually, we all sat there and watched it happen. But if you would have said, hey, in 10 years, Indiana's going to manhandle Alabama, people would have said, what's wrong with you? You're crazy. No. But I think they're gonna have to do similar things to what they did last time when they played Oregon. You can't let Dante Allen get going. You got to make sure you don't give up too many long passes. You can't let them go over the top 5, 6, 7, 8 times, which is one of the things they love to do. I haven't had a chance to watch Oregon's past 3 games, so that's one of the things when I get home tonight. Going to have to pull some stuff up and go through some things. But they have studs on defense as well. They are hard to score against, and it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a tough game for Indiana. It's funny on the prediction thread. I think I said Indiana 30. What did I say? 34-17, 31-17, something like that. And some of my friends were texting me, giving me grief, like, "You think Indiana's going to beat Alabama by double figures? You're dumber than we thought you are." And I'm like, okay, I was wrong. Alabama didn't get 17 points. They got 3. But I do think Indiana is I do not think in any way it'd be a surprise for Indiana to win. I do think it's going to be their toughest game to date, because I really think Ohio State was tough. But I think, like I said, I'm repeating myself now. I think Oregon was the best team because they have the most different ways to win games. But I think Indiana they'll be in, they'll go in, they'll be dialed in. Chandler Whitmer, he'll have Fernando Mendoza's head ready. So I think I got to go back and watch Oregon's past 3 games. But those are the things I see with Oregon. By the way, one little interesting thing about Fernando Mendoza. This is totally tangent. I'm sorry, but it's interesting to me. So here he is. He's an elite player, right? He was the Heisman Trophy favorite for somewhere around half the season, or at least one of the favorites. And it never went to his head. And here's one of the things that you actually could see. He has the same routine every game. Like when he comes out for the early pregame with, 90 minutes on the clock, somewhere around there. It's a process. It's, you go out, you do this, then you do that. Then he even goes through his mechanics, which is both feet. I put a little quick video of it up, and I think pretty much only football nerds really cared. But you stand there, both feet are planted. You can't move your feet. It's twist the hips, throw the ball. Then it's one step back, twist it. It's almost, it reminds me of watching, when I was covering the Colts and playoffs, it reminds me of watching Peyton Manning in warm up, because you do really simple things every freaking time. You don't skip steps. You don't sit there and think, I'm a Heisman Trophy winner. I don't need to stand here at the 20 and just twist my hips and throw. I'm just going to do the stuff that's a little more fun. He does, A, then B, then C, then D. And, it's a process, and it's the same every freaking game. And I think those are things that are examples of Kurt Signetti. And when he talks about we're focused on the process, it is a process that's not just Monday through Friday. There is a Monday through Friday routine, but there's also a process of this is what you do every day. This is what you do every Monday. This is what you do on game day. You don't think, okay, we're really good, so we're not going to do this. It's like that one Wally Backman clip from, I can't remember the name of the TV show, but you guys think you're too good to take batting practice. Why? This is what professionals do. There's a professional component to how IU does this stuff, how they do it each day, how they do each step. And then the next day, it's like, no, I did that on Tuesday. I don't have to do it on Friday. No, you're going to do it on Friday. You're going to do it on Saturday. Okay, you get Sunday off, but you don't skip steps. And you don't sit there and think, well, I'm the Heisman Trophy winner. We're number 1 in the country. I ain't got to do that, minutia. No, you do it because the minutia, the process, the little steps are among the things that got you to where you are. And that's one thing that I think you see with this team is it really is about the process, but the process is doing something. It's actually real steps. You do certain things, but you do them, the things you do daily, you do every day. You don't do them just a couple times and then be like, I did it Wednesday. I ain't doing it Thursday. I ain't doing it Friday. You do it every day, and you do it because it's what's the right thing to do. And I think one of the things that gets lost with Signetti, I think when he talks about process, it's not like something that like you go from A to B to C to D, and then you wake up tomorrow and then you're already on D and you skip steps. It's the whole process that the daily things happen every day. And he really is about, here's how we do what we do. And, I think one time he said, then you look up and see what the score is. It's not totally that because you're paying attention to the game, play calling, clock management. But it's not saying, okay, gosh, guys, you know what? I want to win the Rose Bowl by 30. No, it's okay, guys, here's what we want to do. Coogan, here's what you got to watch for. And it is really interesting to watch it up close. But I think just Mendoza's game day routine and the little things he does, it's just an example of when Signetti says process, what's he talking about? That kind of stuff.
Well, there is nothing better than talking to you about the minutia and the things that are the building blocks. And you're one of the rare people that can meld that with the big picture and the overall context and throw in like statistics and schematics and mechanics and all that all into one. It's why pigs.com is the best place to go. It's why we love talking to you. Thank you for everything you've done to cover this program. You've made this experience all the more richer. And get back to Indiana safely and then get your ass on a plane to Atlanta.
Always great seeing you, boys. Thanks for hanging out today. We'll talk to you.
That was our guest. That was our guest.
Just unbelievable. Unbelievable stuff from Rabby. You could tell how excited he is, right?
Oh, it's so cool. It was last time we had Weaver on, and then I ran into Jared Kelly after the game on his way to the press conference. And for these guys who are keeping their professional veneer together, but like how does it come out since they can't wear cream and crimson and jump up and down? It's like they just go and go and go with all the stuff they've seen and are seeing, and how fun for them. And speaking of fun, how about fun for us with this next guest?
Here comes our guest. Here comes our guest.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Hoosiers of all ages, he's back in his car because that's where he does this from. Eric, who is Carman?
I mean, look, some might say, why talk to somebody from a different sport when you're celebrating football? But on the Hoosier Hysterics podcast, when you want the real and you want great perspective, there's only one place to go, and that's the former Big Ten Player of the Year, one of the best to ever wear the pinstripes. He is a giant among pinstripes, candy stripes. He is a giant among men. He is Dutch. Please welcome number 34, Brian Evans. Dutch. So just tell us what's going through your head watching what you watched on Thursday, New Year's Day at the Rose Bowl.
Guys, that was just start to finish one of the greatest days to be a Hoosier, right? Everything about it. Felt comfortable going in, like we can do this, no doubt. And also just, mucho respect for Alabama. Everybody plants that SEC, fear seed in us. And, it looked like they've been playing better football than they had been. So I thought, yeah, we could play well and potentially lose the game. But just blown away start to finish. At the very start was like, a couple sacks, a quick 3 and out was like, oh my gosh, we're in a dogfight. And then just watched it all unfold and just still can't believe it. It was so much fun. And, I'm still shaking my head, just had a blast. It's been so much fun today just to, spend time on the internet and just read stuff and the negativity. It's still fun to read. It was fun to watch Desmond Howard and everybody pick Alabama as they have all year. And laughing about it, not mad, but just kind of embracing it. That's who we are. And that's, the respect that we're going to get. And it keeps on working. So I don't have any problem with that. I just laughing to myself because then after the game, Desmond actually does a pretty good job of talking about what happened and what he saw. But, they don't pick us on the front end. They really don't. I don't think it's going to change and I don't really want it to.
Exactly. I think this whole team, the DNA from the coach on down has been built with a chip on their shoulder. And I would hate for them to start getting picked as favorites for what's hopefully the next 2 games. Did anything surprise you about the team? You've been watching them all season. Did you see anything new going up against Alabama in the Rose Bowl, or were you like, nope, this is just this is the same team we've seen win 14 games straight?
No, it looked like a lot of the same, really, to me. And I'm not a huge X's and O's football guy, so I can't bring real quality analysis. I'm just a fan, right? And I'm just hoping anytime he drops back, I'm like, complete a pass. I don't know what the defense is doing. I don't know coverages. I don't spend enough time watching football to do that. I don't care to do it. But like the end zone strike to Cooper, I'm thinking, oh, that's overthrown, and then our receiver just makes an amazing catch, and I'm going crazy. I'm just a middle of the road kind of fan of football, but I'm loving every second of it. But to me, it seemed like we just have a playbook, and we stick to it, and we just seem tough and hard nosed, and trying to prove ourselves every play, which is, when you listen to the coach talk, that's what he says we're going to do, and we just keep doing it.
You may not be able to break down schematics and things like that when it comes to football, but you are a high-level player that played for the greatest coach in the history of basketball, and you played for him for 5 years. When you see Cignetti and you hear him talk, whether it's press conferences or on-the-field interviews, as a fan, I'm seeing some of Bob Knight in Curt Cignetti. What do you see in Cignetti that makes you go, this is the football version of what I played for?
A lot. I do it a lot. And I'm sure the people I'm watching with, which is usually my family, I don't know if they're tired of hearing it, but I can't help it. Like, there's times where I keep it to myself when I see it and I hear it. And then there's times I just can't. And I have to say out loud, he reminds me so much of Coach Knight, and he really does.
How so?
The leadership, the preparation, those two words stick out the most. He just leads, and guys are just 100% bought in, and you can see it over and over and over. I like it. There's a little bit of snarkiness in the interviews that reminds me of Coach.
Yes.
He's not really playing to anybody. He says and does what he lives, and a lot of people like it, and a lot of people don't like it, but it's never going to change. He's not doing it for anybody else. That reminds me of Coach. But then you get a lot of the preparation talk and game planning talk, and just, they have a way they want to play football, just like Coach had a way he wanted to play basketball, and the way he thought a game should be played. And then it's all about execution. That's another word you hear him say a lot, that Coach said a lot, is execution, and sticking to our game plan. And those are the things probably that jump out the most, but I see a lot of similarities. And those are the things that, when I get asked about Coach Knight, that I talk about, because I think those are the things that can build a winner, make a winner, and then to kind of maintain it. I don't think we're going anywhere anytime soon. And whether we win these next 2 games or not, it's the ride has been fantastic. But I think there's real stability in all of it. And so I talk about those things with Coach, and I see him in the program now, just very proud of, that leadership that he brought, because it's made all the difference. And I think what he's done with the athletic department, and I got to give them a ton of credit, in the university, for not just picking the right guy, but he's telling them what to do. He's requesting the money, and now there's trust in how he's going about building this thing. So I think they're going to continue, and they've been able to answer that bell and double down. And when he says we've got to pay our assistants, they pay the assistants. When he says, here's how the building needs to look and feel when I'm in it to breed winning, they're doing all those things. And So you got to give them a ton of credit for following up and not just hiring the right guy, and then letting him lead the football program. And I think now there's trust that he can go turn, 2 stars into 4 stars and 3 stars into 5 stars. And now we wonder, okay, what's it going to look like if we can, pick the right 5 stars that have the right DNA to be in this. And I think that's where the genius of him and Coach Knight comes in, is they don't all have to be 5 stars by somebody else's ranking system. It's okay. We can trust that he knows how to identify guys that, because a lot of times when you get a 5 stars, you get egos and you get entourages that come with it. Do we have a coach that can identify the right players that fit in his system? I don't spend any time thinking about that, because I'm 100% positive he's doing that, and he's going to continue to do it. So you don't worry. You just sit back and have fun. And that's what's been so great, is it's just, we can enjoy the whole thing. We got the right guy who does the right things. And all those press conference in the after the game, we have a winning culture and a winning team, and that's awesome. But how we've done it and what it looks like is even better. I don't know how to say it other than like that. Is I can't tell you how proud I am of the interviews and the way the guys talk.
Right.
It blows me away that it's something to really be proud of. And Coach Signetti too. Just every time the mic gets moved to somebody else, I'm looking around the room going, that was perfect. That was perfect. But what I like to hear, and you guys know, I've been honest, and I spent a lot of time being really unhappy with the way our basketball program looked and looked to the outside viewer. I wasn't proud of it, and I said it, and I feel the exact opposite with this. It's like I'm just proud of everything they say, all of their actions. It's just been awesome.
One thing coming off of yesterday's victory that makes an exact parallel between Coach Knight and Coach Signetti. Both of them in their second year as head coach at Indiana University won the Big Ten championship and got to the Final Four. So if there's any good omen for what Signetti's tenure is going to look like, I think that's a pretty good case for that. Coming from the basketball perspective, Dutch, we're hearing it now. People have been kind of saying it ironically, tongue in cheek, but it keeps being brought up that Indiana is a football school. Now we're a football school. I don't think that means at the exclusion of basketball, but I wonder, as a basketball player, when you hear people saying that, and it's still very much up in the air what this basketball season is going to be like, what this tenure is going to be like with Darren DeVries. How do you think Indiana, being now also a football school, may or may not impact the success of basketball?
Oh, I don't look at it like that. I know what you're saying. And I don't feel resentment at all or any kind of negative vibes surrounding that. I think that's people's way of just saying, hey, we respect the football program now. We never did before, which is understandable. No, I think it's all good. And there's no reason you can't be both. And I don't think there's no rule that says you're one or the other. I feel like our football program is in the best hands it could be in. And, now we can focus on, being the same thing in basketball. I mean, we're always going to be a basketball school, right? They say it on, on the game yesterday several times. People like to say it. Coach Knight had so much success, and banners are hung to represent how great those teams were, and they can't take it away. It's easy to pick us apart now because we haven't won anything big in a long time, and that's fair. We haven't. But are we a blue blood? That's kind of, to me, that's the same conversation, and those are just ways to identify really the top tier. And we haven't been in it in the last 25 years or 30 years, but it doesn't mean we can't get back there. And so, I think Darren had brought a lot of great ingredients. I think he's got leadership. I mean, it's early in his career. It wasn't an overnight thing like it was with Signetti, but that's okay. I mean, this has been lightning in a bottle with football. And I think, we've got to show a little bit of patience and but keep our excitement level high for basketball, because there's no reason we can't do it. I think with the new rules and the way things are changing, next year could be that year. There's no reason it can't. I don't think it is this year, but I'm not down on the team or anything like that. Right. I just don't think this is a team that's going to go do something dramatic and win at a really high level. But I think we can next year.
I want to go back to the Coach Knight stuff, because you talked about execution. One of the things they used to say about Indiana basketball with Coach Knight at the helm was everybody knew what we were going to do. I mean, there was no secret what you guys were going to do. You were going to run the motion offense. You were going to set a shit ton of screens. You were going to play physical. You were going to play hard from the opening tip to the last buzzer. And it didn't matter that people knew what we were going to do. We weren't going to do anything flashy. I mean, honestly, I remember in the 87 Final Four, Knight did change how we played against UNLV. And he did decide, we're just going to run these guys off the court. They think they can run us, we're going to run them. But more often than not, like 99% of the time, you did you. Knight did what he wanted to do, and you still couldn't stop it. And it wasn't flashy. We had great players, obviously, yourself included. Steve Alford, Isaiah Thomas, Scott May, Calbert Chaney, great players. But there was nothing that flashy about it. We weren't tricking anybody. And I watch Signetti, and I look at that offense. It's like there's no flea flickers. There's no crazy reverses. We're not doing something stupid on a punt. We're not faking it. We're just playing traditional, awesome football and saying you can't beat us. And that to me, I just see so much of Knight in Signetti, in how the team goes about doing what they do and how they execute. We know what we do, and if we do it at a high level, you're going to have a really tough time beating us. I see that a lot. Do you see that as well?
Yes, and make no mistake, we did what he wanted done. That's it. I mean, we weren't doing anything other than what he wanted done. And that's what I see with the football team. They're playing the way he wants them to play. Period. End of story. I'm humbled for you to put me in a list with those guys that you named. But I would also say I'm more like one of the James Madison guys. So I don't put myself with Isaiah and those guys at all. Some of my heroes growing up, and Calvert was even one of them. Those were great players. But what's really cool about Signetti and Coach Knight, another connection, is that you can have guys like me, and I'll stop short of naming the guys on the current football team that are kind of similar. But you could take more of an average guy, and they could shine when they're surrounded by other good players, but with the structure and all those other intangibles that the coach brings, right? And I was one of those guys, that I looked a lot better in that uniform than I would have in any other uniform.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I was reading something this morning on Pigs about the transfer portal kids, because, the transfer portal is now officially open. And it was a list of guys that Indiana is targeting for visits. And there's been some bigger names, like I think Nick Marsh, who's this stud wide receiver from Michigan State, is going to visit Indiana. And we've been in the conversation with some of these stud quarterbacks that are in. But as I went through the list, and it was like 12 guys, all of them were guys I had never heard of. All of them. They were like a guy from Tulane, a guy from, like small schools. Like, he is not changing the blueprint. He is, and he could now just go for those like big name, flashy guys. And you're right to say he'll find the right ones to do, the ones that fit the culture. But I just love that I'm reading a list of players, a defensive end from here, a lineman from here, a safety I've never heard of, that he sees something in. He sees something that will fit that culture. And he's got the confidence in himself that he's not going to change for anybody.
No, I agree with that. These guys, Coach Knight, Coach Signetti, I mean, they're savants, right, in their sport, and their player evaluation is theirs. And I think it's a huge separation from, the pack of other coaches, that they see things we can't. We're not on the level to even talk to them about it. If we had the opportunity to ask them about it, we wouldn't even get it. They can
Right.
do it, and they do it at a really high level. And I think with him, and I'm blind to this, this my guess is he lets his staff do a lot of evaluation and then bring him, tape, a manageable amount of tape to watch. And then he probably whittles that list down from what he saw. And then my guess is then he's going to get on the phone with those guys, and then he does the rest. And then he can tell by talking to kids and doing some recon about who they are, who they really are. Everybody puts on a good show, right? It's probably pretty easy to be a rah guy and get on the phone and talk about how hard you're going to work and stuff like that. But my guess is he's got a way, and he's got his own way to evaluate these guys that's a little deeper than what we recognize.
Even then, in such a short time frame, besides bringing his guys with him from JMU, he had to bring in so many guys last year and this year, and that eval has to happen pretty quickly. So for the chemistry to work, and when everybody's all bought in like this, with Coach Knight, how often would you see these guys walking into the locker room for the first time and you're like, they come from a great family, their parent or parents really raised them right, and they're fitting right into what we're doing? How much of it was that compared to once they get into that environment, that culture that's been established, it helps them become even more of that person that Coach Knight or now Signetti wants? You know what I mean? It's like nature versus nurture. I think obviously they've got to see that coming in, but is it really part of the locker room culture to help that blossom?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know what their locker room culture looks like. From a distance, it looks great, right? They play for each other. I see a 10-second clip where a 1, a 2, you know what to do. That's all I'm seeing. And it looks like a lot of fun. I'd like to be there, but at the same time, what was our culture? Tough. I mean, I wouldn't say just a ton of fun. I mean, it was a ton of fun to win. It was fun to win on the road in the Big Ten in tough environments. I mean, you get a charge or a thrill out of that kind of stuff. But I mean, I go back to the first time I was in the locker room. Start of school my first year, and we had our first meeting with Coach, and this is kind of to kick off our preseason conditioning program that he was never around for. But we had every year we'd have a meeting with him once we were in school. He'd come into town, because he did a lot of traveling and speaking engagements and hunting, fishing, or whatever he was doing. That was still his off season. And he'd come in and he was super tan, so you knew he was outside somewhere. But it was always a pretty short, quick meeting. But I remember the first one I was in the locker room, and, I came in with Alan Henderson, who was my roommate at the time. And we got there 10 or 15 minutes before the meeting, and everybody was already there. And that stood out right away. Like, what, are we late? I thought we were early. And I found out that 10 minutes wasn't early enough, because what if he comes in earlier? But that sounds like something little, but it's also this is how we do things. Like, we do it on time, every time, preparation. And then when he walked in, I mean, just the vibe in the room was so serious, and that left a mark too. Like, whoa, this is a big deal, right, to him. And it was all about, what do we expect out of this season, and just setting the standard, which Signetti talks about. Where is the standard? Playing to the standard. Another real strong similarity to Coach Knight. And the standard was win a Big Ten championship and play for a national championship. That's what it was. And so every year it was, okay, he gets us to say that's what we want to do. And then he says, well, here's what the recipe looks like. And it sounded really difficult, right? Like, the preseason is going to be the hardest one we've ever had. The running, the lifting, the training. I've asked my staff to put you through hell. And so you typically walked out of that meeting 15 minutes later going, oh, shit. Oh, shit. And it was, oh, shit, every time. And let's get to work. And you get butterflies, because you're going, that's what we expect to do. That's the standard. now we got to go live up to it.
Well,
Ward,
I'm sorry, you said he did that in 15 minutes. And another thing we hear about Sig, he's very efficient. That both he and even Bryant Haynes, I heard say this week, they try to get the point across in as few words as possible. Did you feel like Coach Knight, the practices, the meetings, the film sessions, that it was all just like to the point, right to the bone, and then move to the next thing? Is that a similarity?
Very much, until things are broken.
right.
No, serious. I mean, it was, yes, very efficient. Yeah, these aren't long meetings. I don't think it's because, our attention spans, I think now are way shorter than they were then. But no, these weren't long meetings until something's wrong. And then they're long meetings that never end.
And then you don't want to ever have one of those again. No,
it's true. And it's right. Like, you got to figure out your why, and I think it would have been an easy, to find your why would be to not be in any of those meetings. And so if that's what makes you play hard, that's fine. Play hard because of that. Follow his direction and lead because of that. And sometimes that was it for me. And to not get in trouble, let's play as hard as I can. Let's do everything I can to win this game. Not for the glory of old IU, but just because I don't want to be in the film session. That's fine.
Absolutely. Another thing, Ward and I kind of disagree here, maybe more of a semantic conversation, but I am a believer that many of the truly great coaches in any sport have this like pettiness to them as well. Something sticks in their craw and they can't shake it, and it helps drive them. You can call it a chip on their shoulder if you want. But in the interview with Cignetti after the game, you saw a little bit of it where he's like, oh, we're not supposed to do this because Indiana's on the jersey, because our name's Indiana. Like he has to make that point. And, Coach Knight was infamous for he hated Adolph Rupp. And thus hated Kentucky. He wanted to beat Joe B. Hall when Joe B. was the coach of Kentucky. He always wanted to beat Ohio State, his alma mater. There was something beyond just the X's and O's and winning that drove those guys to also just be like, don't question us. And I see that in Cignetti, and I like it. I respect it because I do think it helps drive him as well. You see any of that?
Yeah, I do, for sure. And he's standing up for, hey, every time they say something like that, it's kind of a little bit of a bitch slap to things that had nothing to do with him. So
yes.
It's like, to me, that was the same as when he got interviewed pregame at Penn State.
Yes.
And he said, we've never played here before. And then he walked away. That's the end of the interview. You're going to ask me stupid questions, trying to what are you trying to do? Convince me we can't win today? Go to hell. He's walked away. Now, I didn't know that Coach Knight, I just learned this a few weeks ago, that Coach Knight had bitch slapped Joe B. Hall at a game. Yes. I did not know that.
Yes.
I must have been a little too young at the time, or somehow I missed that one. I had to learn that. I had to have multiple people. I said, did that really happen at a game? Blows my mind, but doesn't totally surprise me. Now, I will say this. When a couple of the players were dumping rose petals on his head, it was one of the greatest, things I've ever seen. And I thought about Coach Knight when I saw that, and I thought, and anytime I see it, Super Bowl, whatever it is, people dumping Gatorade on the coach, and they did it at the end of that Georgia game, Ole Miss game. It took forever for them to do it, and the game wasn't over. I do know this. I would not have been one of the guys that would have dumped the bottle of Gatorade. I would have just watched from afar. I would have enjoyed watching it. I wouldn't have done it. I don't know what that says. It's I wouldn't have been dumping anything on Coach Knight. I promise you.
You know what I thought when I saw the roses getting dumped on him? Because I feel like he has so many similarities to Coach, where he's not your friend. You know what I mean? He's not your friend. He's the CEO of this organization, and you are working for him. Make no mistake about it. But when I saw the roses getting dumped on him, I thought it reminded me a little bit of Cheney with the towel. and whipping Knight at the end of the game, and Knight just kind of taking it, not really engaging with it, but knowing that it was happening. And it just reminded me that, like, there is a tremendous amount of respect from player to coach, and I think from coach to player if you earn it. And you were one of the guys that earned it. Calbert Cheney obviously earned it. Steve Alford earned it. And that moment reminded me of that a little bit, that, like, no, we're not friends, but in this little moment. And by the way, if it was red colored Gatorade, I don't think they would have dumped that on Signetti, but it was roses that just kind of fall apart and fall away. I think that was like the line that they were willing to go to.
I thought the same thing. I was like, well, they were just rose petals and they probably smelled good.
Right.
And that was cool. I thought it was cool, but not Gatorade. No way. And I even watched the celebrations like of the championships, 76, 81, 87. And I saw a lot of hugs and embraces, and, I was jealous of that. I wanted to have that moment. I never had one. I mean, I just didn't. I don't think I ever shook Coach's hand, or I know I've never hugged him, ever. Would have. I still wonder, like, if we would have won, would there have been here's what I do know. Like, if we'd have won it in 93, I was a contributor of sorts. Certainly wasn't Calbert or any of those guys. And I think there would have been a huge embrace between, those seniors and him. I don't think I was hug worthy then. I don't think he would have hugged me. I think if I could have got a high five or something, it would have been cool. And then maybe if you're, my last year or two, we weren't really a threat to win the whole thing. But I've looked at those post game celebrations and like, wow, Scott May hugged Coach Knight. Like, I can't believe that. It just wasn't on the table. And to your point, though, he was the CEO, president, founder, the whole deal. Like, I was to say, he was too many rungs up the ladder from me, where, I would have settled for if he said something nice about me in the post game, that would have been enough.
You had mentioned even, it was fun to win road games. And I think one thing about Signetti that has come out more and more, and it even was there from the beginning when he first talks to the Assembly Hall crowd about Purdue and Ohio State and Michigan and Kentucky, there is something fun about him. He does embrace fun in what he deems, maybe it's like, this is fun to rile up a crowd. This is fun to get people Googling me. And he clearly lets these guys enjoy the victories as they come. And then they got to turn the page in a day or two and move on to the next game. And I wonder if that, where Coach Knight was old school in every form of the word, especially in the 70s and 80s, early 90s, when you could still be truly old school. But then I think we're in a very different era now. And to me, it looks like Signetti, he comes up to Mendoza after throwing the pick six at Oregon, and he says, "Are you having fun yet?" And I wonder if part of the reason Sig is thriving right now is he brings a lot of that old school that you need to be successful, but with today's players who they're not going to take it the way you guys did back in the day. It's just not that kind of a society anymore. How important it is for this team to have fun along the way, maybe even to prevent getting burnt out. Were you guys able to celebrate winning a Big Ten championship, or was it still just like, well, now we got to get ready for the tournament, and that's what's happening in the locker room after you win the Big Ten?
Well, at the beginning of your comment, I'll go back to that. The first part is, I think it's way more of when he went to the basketball game and said that about, I think it's setting a tone of, this is serious, and we're not taking any shit off of anybody.
Right.
I think that was the message. And then it's the way he carries himself every day, and setting a tone. Again, I'm not close enough to see what that is. I know he didn't celebrate the Big Ten championship other than for 5 minutes in the locker room, and it wasn't to dance music and jumping up and down in a circle and squirting water on each other. That's new. Nothing wrong with it, but that's not what it was. It was, they gave us a T-shirt, and we put it on, and maybe a hat on backwards, like today. and then take a shower and go home. And and I see that the same thing though. Coogan, his interview was unbelievable. And then there was another one, they caught him on the sideline that I saw later on my phone. And I couldn't be more impressed with him. But his comment, it's what happens is if the leader is great and it's working, you fall in line. So you don't celebrate wins for an extended period of time. It's not over. I mean, Kobe said it best.
Job's not done.
Job's not done. So, I mean, if you try to make it all about we're having fun here, fun is winning. Fun isn't celebrating the win. Fun is winning. And so you get on the plane, you're happier, the mood's better. But then they're going back. They know the schedule. They freaking know the schedule. You could tell with what they said. They got today off, back to work. And I guarantee you this, and this reminds me of Coach too. When you come into work on, Friday, on Saturday, ain't nobody talking about the Rose Bowl. I promise you that. They're not talking about the Rose Bowl. It's okay that we are.
Right.
They're not. I promise you that. And that's without me being close to the program, but I can tell. And so then you get the guys, the culture, which is what's so exciting and scary about what might happen here. Scary good, not scary bad, that there's a way to do things now. And it's going to be exactly the same all the time. As long as we have him, this is how they do it. And I love it. That's what's exciting, is like, could be a scary good thing for Indiana football for years and years to come, because they're going to do it like that. And you can't come because one player had a good game, but the team lost, or the whole team played great and you won a big game. That's history now. I mean, it's history as of tomorrow morning. They're not going to be talking about what they did. They're going to be talking about what they got to do. And the player, once the players, it's all bred now. They're saying, you know this in their interviews, they're talking like him. And I know that when I was being interviewed, or other players were being interviewed back in our day, you're saying what you just heard. Like whatever he said in the locker room, that's the media is asking me. I'm saying what he said. I'm not trying to come up with new shit that's my own. I was saying this is what we're doing, and this is what it's like to play here, and that's culture. That's what's really cool to watch.
I couldn't agree more. Love your perspective. I will say this, because you're too humble about this. You may not have gotten an embrace or a handshake or being the guy on the Gatorade bucket. No one was for Coach Knight. But years after you played for Coach Knight, not every player got invited to go to a golf trip in Ireland or Scotland or wherever it was. You were part of an elite group that got to be part of his life after Indiana coaching and Indiana basketball. And I don't know if you ever, kind of look back on those moments, but to me, that's the pat on the butt from Coach Knight. That's I respect you. I respect you and what you did for me and what you did for Indiana. That's how I would look at it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I kind of agree. At the same time, you got to understand the risk of being in Ireland with him if he's not playing well, because this is not basketball. So it's not like my play had anything to do with the trip, whether I played good or bad. But if he didn't play well on the golf trip, it was like after us losing a game and being on an airplane with him. That's not fun. So I don't know that I went in with eyes wide open, but I only went on one trip out of the country with him, because I'd seen enough at that point in time.
Well, look, my favorite thing that you said on this, and this has been awesome to talk to you, but what I'm going to remember is the fun is the winning. That the fun is the winning. It's not the celebration.
No, I mean,
it's the winning.
These guys they're so bought in. I mean, you just see it the whole time. They're so bought into what they're doing, and they're in the moment. They're preparing. Dude, I guarantee you, Signetti didn't take today off. I don't know if they flew back last night or today, but the team had the day off. I guarantee you the staff did. I mean, they're working the portal. They're working. And I think there's also a next level of respect that you got to give to Signetti, is to be managing that while they're trying to win
Totally.
games, because you have to play that game. You have to play that game. You can't say, well, we're not going to do it until we finish. They can't. So they're in there today, and they're grinding, and they're watching tape, and I guarantee they're watching Oregon tape again. They're doing everything. And so the focus is so good. It's so much fun to know that that's what's happening. And they're having those conversations with transfer guys, and they're building next year's team. And how do they go about doing it? I don't know, but I know that we got the right guy that we can trust is doing it, and doing it at a high level.
And that's fun for us fans. And Dutch, it's so fun to have you back on days like this, because, you know, we've all been through a lot of these podcasts together, often talking about IU basketball. That hasn't been as much fun. And look, we've been doing this podcast since 2018. And obviously this is the highest heights for Hoosier Nation since we started this pod. And whether it's with strangers in Indiana gear at the Rose Bowl yesterday in Pasadena, or jumping on with you today, it's just so fun to share this. And yes, to know we can trust the coach and the staff to be doing the work, so we can celebrate all week right up to the kickoff of the game against Oregon and Atlanta. So thank you for taking the time to spend good times and fun times with us, because it's been a bleak road often for Hoosier fans. And when it's good, we should really just revel in it as much as we can.
I agree with you. Let me ask you, I got one question for you guys. Number one, in the post game, Cignetti said, I mean, he just doesn't take any shit. He did it as happy as he could be, but they asked him a stupid question to kind of beat on our past, and he's not going to do it, which I love. But he said this should be a movie, which I thought was awesome, and I think it will be a movie. And I hope that Angelo Pizzo is working on it right now. But at the same time, as great as the answer was, when the thing was over with, I was sitting there thinking, who would play Cignetti? So I want you guys to tell me who would play Cignetti in the Indiana football movie when it comes out.
You know, it's funny. I was texting with Angelo about this, and Angelo does not think this is a movie for several reasons. He thinks it's a great
And I'll do it. I mean, that's weak. Go ahead. Sorry.
He thinks it's a great documentary, but he's like, here's the truth. We were talking about Mendoza earlier. Here's why Mendoza is a terrible movie character. And Ward can speak to this better than I can. But great stories are all about conflict. And they're all about like overcoming a demon, you know, as far as a character and having a character arc. Mendoza's too perfect. He's too perfect. Like you would have to write something.
Immediately push back. Look at the struggle for his family.
Yes, I get that. But
look at the struggle of being overlooked by every major college football program.
Maybe. I just think the guy
there's plenty he's had to overcome, and to just look at it as we have from right now and be like, look, it's just so easy. There's no difficulty.
No, not easy. Not easy. I just think he's too perfect. I'll give you my pitch right now. First one to play Cignetti. I think Dennis Quaid could play him. I like Dennis Quaid. I think he's about the right age. I think he's got the toughness, the gruff, and I'll give you one more. But you have to think of it as this version of him. Yellowstone Kevin Costner. Yellowstone Kevin Costner, who is badass, who does not show emotion, who speaks in very few words, but everyone lands. Yellowstone Kevin Costner or Dennis Quaid are my choices.
I like it.
Ward, you got one coming to mind?
I want somebody to go full method. I want somebody to go all the way in. He's the best coach in the world, so I want the best actor in the world, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Okay. Daniel Day could do it if he wanted to do it.
He would just transform himself into the man, and I want to get as close to that as possible.
You got one, Evans? You got one, Dutch, in your mind?
I don't know that I have one. I saw a meme that was pretty funny. Somebody put out there from Tommy Boy, Dan Aykroyd's character in Tommy Boy. I am the American people. I make car parts. I thought that was hilarious. It's more of a look. They share a similar look.
Yeah, that's true.
But he talks kind of like no nonsense, straightforward. And he kind of talks fast. And I was like, okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I'll take it. All right, well, we'll start working on it. Dutch, you're the man. Let's do this again after we win the semifinal game.
I love it, guys. Have a good one.
That was our guest. That was our guest.
Well, this has been a blast. Getting the perspective from a journalist who is inside in Rabby and has covered this program beginning to end, soup to nuts, and then getting one of our favorite guests who clearly is more focused on basketball, but just seeing how happy Dutch was and how I love hearing him talk about how proud the football program makes him as a Hoosier. It warms my heart.
You said a blast. I do think fun is a really important word for this, not just for us, but for the team. And to push back a little bit in terms of, I totally agree. The impact statement of Brian Evans was the fun was winning, not the celebrating. But when even you look at what Cignetti's doing on the sideline in the second half and the game's in control, yes, he can still get after the refs or some players, but he's having fun. He's been having fun this whole time. And a lot of it is in a gruff exterior. And when he gets asked a dumb question by a reporter, he's not having fun. He doesn't suffer fools. But I think in this day and age, obviously for fans, it doesn't really matter. We're just along for the ride. But I think for a lot of these players in a really intense season, and if this team hopefully goes 16 games, and 16-0 would be the most fun ride imaginable for any college football fan base ever, is that is what helps you get back up on Monday morning, or the proverbial Monday morning, and get back to work and start grinding again. And even that grind has got to be fun. You've got to find the joy. A friend of mine once said, one has to imagine Sisyphus enjoys his task. So how do you find the pleasure in rolling that rock up the hill? And I think you're not getting a lot of stories or even footage of Cignetti in practice just ripping players and reaming them. One, I think they're all bought in and doing what he wants them to do, as is his staff. But I think that, excuse me, the fun is, yes, in the winning, but also in the process of winning and enjoying all the little steps along the way. You find the pleasure in the doing, but also the people you're doing it with. And there's not somebody who's like a black cloud walking around the program every day. And, that really worked, I think, to a large degree for Coach Knight back in the 70s and 80s. But I don't think that would fly today. And these guys need to be able to find that joy throughout the process and to really, really enjoy the winning, and that includes the celebrations afterwards, so they get back up the next morning and they're ready to grind again, because they have that tension, that build, and then there's that release, the endorphins, the dopamine. Now we're ready to get right back to work.
Yeah, I just hope they're not enjoying the celebrating as much as we are, because I am a wreck. I am a wreck and could not do anything. If there was a practice tomorrow or the next day, I would be a shell of my former self.
Right. Well, your former self was still never an amazing athlete at 21
No, my former
years old.
Self was a shell also.
No, I think these guys can actually have more fun and celebrate way harder than us in one night and be back to work at 100% the next day, the way our old, unathletic bodies never could.
Well, let's do it again in a few days. As always, follow us on Twitter at Hoosier Hysterics for the hysterics. No E.
No I.
But the sometimes why.
From the halls of assembly, you'll hear us scream and shout. Our love of Indiana is manic and devout. Everything we discuss in unique manner. We won't be satisfied until we hang another banner. Us two goofy guys go by names of Ward and Eric, and as you probably know by now, we're Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier Hysterics.